There's no time.
The time is
13.
o'clock.
Hey, it's us. It's Saturday.
And we are here and it is hot as shit. It's like 75 degrees in this house. Air conditioner fucking wide open. 75 degrees.
Well, at least it hasn't broken this year.
Yeah,
knock wood.
it didn't go down this year.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, you know.
I was walking down the mailbox and looked, and half these houses got 2 big outside units.
Well, you can't blame
We
them,
only
like
got
I
one.
said. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does, and even though we just had it replaced like a couple years ago, but they just break.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because they're running so hard.
Yeah, usually like right around in August, it'll usually go, I can't take it.
Yeah.
I can't keep the fucking house that
Let me
cool.
see. All right, just
You,
making sure
you
I'm
adjusting your...
I'm just making sure I'm in the damn picture. I was over here and shit. Hold on.
Well, don't look at me. That's
All
yours.
right.
My chair's in the same
can't
place as
tell
it
where
always
I'm
is.
at,
Yours
where I
is
am.
like movable, so
All right.
I don't really know.
All right.
Oracle Mun is waving
Now I
at
got
us.
this
Hi,
shit here
hi.
in front of me.
Well,
I got this shit here in front of me.
you can't move it around too much because we won't be able to hear you.
Yeah.
So I think we did one the other day, and I think the microphone was turned like way toward me, so it's like I was really loud and you were really quiet.
All right.
For a change.
All right. Okay.
So yeah, everything is all together.
All right.
Hi everybody. It's Saturday night. We've
Yep.
got our cocktails
See how everybody's
all
doing?
set up.
We got 20 in there right now.
That's good.
Everybody's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
All the regulars.
We're doing a show about Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
This was what won
It's a
the
request.
Patreon poll.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I started doing a poll like every week, so I looked. If you haven't voted in the poll for next week's show, then you have until tomorrow at noon Eastern Standard Time.
Speak
to
up.
vote.
Can't hear you. Speak up.
I said if you
There
haven't
you go.
voted in the Patreon poll, if you're a patron and you haven't voted in the poll for next week's topic and next week's movie retrospective, you have
Yeah.
until noon tomorrow Eastern Standard Time to vote on it.
All right.
I looked in there and it looks like the topic, there's a clear front runner. So I imagine there will not be an upset, which is good because it's kind of a good topic that I wanted to do. The movie could go either way because there's 2 that are kind of like only a vote or 2 apart. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, this Howard Hughes in the poll, this won handily. And we had actually just thought about doing this like a few weeks ago, and I think we just mentioned it on the show when we were talking about something else, and everybody was like, yeah, you should do a show on Howard Hughes. So I was like, okay, so I put it in the poll, and it won easily.
Yeah.
It got like 3 times more votes than anything.
Back in the late 90s, I read a book about Howard Hughes. It was called Howard Hughes: The Untold Story, and it was like a biography of him, and it had his right hand man who helped him run the empire was kind of like one of the main sources for the book. And then Jenny, it was a good book. And then Jenny read a totally different book, and a lot of it crossed over. Although a lot of this in that book didn't mention a lot of the stuff that fucking was mentioned in the one that I read. But yeah, fascinating books. Really, he's kind of a fascinating dude. But going through his life story and biographies, actually, it's just kind of like an average story for a real rich kid. So we're going to try to keep we're going to try to keep the show exciting. We're talking about the weird shit that he did.
Yeah,
try
I
to,
mean,
right.
talk about his life, yeah.
Right.
But, talk about, like, some shit I found out that was interesting. Yeah, because like you said, you read a biography. I read a biography that was free on Kindle Unlimited. And I think it was just called American Legends, like The Life of Howard Hughes or something like that. And so it was free, so I read that. There's another biography. There's like a shit ton of biographies of Howard Hughes, like I said, because he was a fascinating person. But the other one, I checked out another one that was free on there. But that one, I only read like the first few pages and I was like, this sounds like a crackpotty kind of one that's like somebody that says that he faked his own death or something like that. I don't know if that's exactly what they were heading towards, but that seemed like it, and I was just like, no. So,
No, he didn't fake his own death.
I didn't read that.
They had the body.
He died on an airplane.
Yeah,
when he was in the air. Like,
They had the body, and by the time all that shit happened, a lot of his wealth had been transferred over to the fucking Mormon church, which that's a story into itself there.
We need to do a whole show about
Yeah.
Mormons.
Yeah, and just the Hughes security apparatus. Howard Hughes was single-handedly responsible for shaping a lot of the shit that you consider to be modern in the modern world. Shit like guided missiles, fucking the FBI, CIA, spycraft, shit like that. Howard Hughes was involved in a lot of that.
Yeah, he kind of had his fingers in a lot of pies.
Yeah. And what's funny is...
and that has a double meaning.
Yeah. And what's funny is, he's building a damn intelligence organization a lot more powerful than the FBI at the time. And he's building this thing, it has the ability to tap phones and follow people and doing complete investigations on people. It was like one of the best fucking private detective agencies in the world. And he's running it to keep an eye on girls.
Yeah,
it's some weird shit to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he had
girls.
like a lot of his girlfriends followed.
Making sure they weren't cheating on him.
Even though he cheated on every single girlfriend and wife he ever had. Like, he didn't even seem to, like, think there was anything wrong with it.
You're supposed to.
Yeah, that was just, like, what you did. So, but the girls couldn't do that. He'd get mad.
No.
But, yeah, that's...
He'd cut him off.
Yeah, it was, like, the double standard type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what made him such a fascinating character, is that he was a brilliant guy. He was a genius, really. He was a mechanical engineer, like, the shit that he did. But he wasn't actually all that good at running businesses. He was very good at spending money.
Yeah.
And kind of just running around being a playboy or whatever.
He didn't care.
He didn't really care.
No.
I think he thought that the money was just never going to run out, which I guess it kind of didn't.
It didn't for him.
But, so he had like a whole apparatus of people who handled all that shit for him because he couldn't really be bothered. He was more like an idea guy.
And he did not trust lawyers, and he did not trust people that had college educations. He thought they were all corrupt, and that he couldn't trust them. And there may have been something to a lot of that.
Is Howard Hughes responsible for the Osmonds? Perhaps indirectly.
Yeah. Yeah, because
God damn it.
I think most of Salt Lake City, Utah was built with Hughes money.
Possibly, sure.
It looked a lot like it. Dairy Queen probably had a lot to do with it.
And he was kind of responsible, too, for making Las Vegas more of like a regular tourist destination rather than like a mafia playground type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really inconceivable because I believe, is this correct? He was America's first billionaire. That's correct, right?
They're not sure how much money he had. They tried to investigate him one time. We're getting ahead. This is actually the show.
Yeah.
All right. But I guess this is part of the show anyway.
We're just doing kind of like an overview. My tummy.
From what I read, the FBI had him under investigation. They were trying to figure out how much he owned.
Yeah.
And they weren't quite sure.
He was always kind of getting into trouble for various monopoly, antitrust type stuff. Government contracts that he took money for and never produced the shit that he was supposed to produce. Like shit like that.
Yeah, now a lot of that didn't have to do with him personally. It was just the fucking, this is a huge empire.
His company, yeah.
His empires were doing that. But they were trying to figure out how much he actually owned. And
all of it. That's the
they
answer.
never really could figure out how much he owned. Now, there's I guess I'm getting ahead of myself with a story. There was one time where Hughes had read something in an aviation magazine, and he fucking got furious. So he calls his big right-hand man. He's kind of like the Darth Vader of the operation. He's like the Emperor, So he calls Darth Vader in. And he goes, I can't believe it. They're fucking. This company is making leaps and bounds. I can't remember what piece of technology it was. It was something aviation. And he goes, we need to find this company. We need to crush this company. He's fucking ordering his men to home in on this fucking company and just totally destroy it. All right. So they're making all these arrangements to try to fucking launch some kind of industrial warfare against this threatening company. And months later, during all this investigation, they realized that they owned that company. And he didn't know.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, that it was one of their companies. And it's because, in order to
I hope that's true. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it evidently was. It's because, in order to get around a bunch of taxation and monopoly stuff and antitrust stuff, they had the empire hidden behind walls and all these different firewalls.
So nobody in the structure
knew everything.
Right.
And they would make shell companies and dummy companies that would own other companies that were real. And you had to go through a damn whole flow chart and certain, like, I guess you could say, branch managers were given instructions to make these firewalls automatically, and it might be hidden behind 3 or 4 different walls of men, you know what I mean, or like these little legal firewalls. Anyway, that was one of the things that he did. And the reason why the FBI wanted to know what he owned is because the FBI at that time fucking had heard that he was crazy, that he had mental problems.
He did.
And they were afraid that he might do something stupid and crash the stock market. And
a legit concern.
Right. And he evidently at times, the FBI believed that he owned a significant portion of the U.S. economy, enough to do serious damage.
He very well may have.
So Hughes evidently believed they wanted proof that he was incompetent so they could take him out of the fucking command structure.
Yeah.
Which they probably would have done.
Well, it was one reason why he married later on, because he was afraid. He thought that if he married someone, then the wife would be responsible for his, like, mental, she would be able to take over from him, and, like, you know what I mean, so he wouldn't be able to get, like, fucking
if you guys like
sectioned or whatever.
If you guys like Fallout, there's a little expansion game called Fallout New Vegas, and there's a character in there called House, or the House, and he's living up in a big old hotel and controlling these robots and talking to you through computer screens, and that's directly modeled after Howard Hughes.
There are so many characters modeled after Howard. I mean, other than, like, the movies that are actually about him, like The Aviator, like from 2004 with Leonardo DiCaprio, which is a very good movie, by the way. But there were also, I think, like The Rocketeer, Tony Stark from the Avengers is kind of based on him. There's, like, tons and tons and tons of other fictional characters.
Elon Musk is based on Howard Hughes.
They're all based. He's like the quintessential eccentric billionaire.
Yeah.
I was wondering, though, like, one of the things that the biography that I read said, and I think I might agree with this, is that, yes, he had, like, a lot of accomplishments in aviation, in movie production, in things that he invented, and various other things. Hollywood starlets that he dated, like all of them at the time, including Hedy Lamarr, which somebody mentioned in the comments. Yes, he was friends with Hedy Lamarr. He was friends with and dated pretty much everybody that was anybody at that point.
And he wasn't autistic. Somebody's in there saying he might have been autistic. He wasn't autistic.
He was introverted and shy, but he was real charming. Yeah. I mean, so he was kind of able to. He didn't really like to be around people, but he could schmooze, He was socially competent.
He
was, yeah. Like, I think that, although I think he didn't enjoy it. He did like spending time with women, though.
He was a typical billionaire kid. Yeah. He grew up rich.
Yeah.
His parents were rich. And he was all homeschooled.
Well, he went to, like, really good, like, private schools, and he kind of had everything.
No, he had some of the best tutors in the world come and teach him a lot of stuff, too. I think when he was young, he went to private schools.
Yeah.
But after his parents died, he didn't go to university. Why would he do that? He would just hire a professor to come and tutor him at his house.
Yeah.
That's where he learned all his aviation stuff. He was a genius. He wasn't dumb.
Kleenex boxes for slippers. Yeah, he did do that, like, later on.
Yeah, that was all. But the reason why he's weird, it didn't have anything to do with autism. It had to do with multiple head injuries. That's the main one.
And probably he had OCD, which he might have inherited from his mom. Because she had a little bit of that too.
Head injuries
and he had multiple head injuries, not just head injuries. He had all kind of terrible injuries. I mean, he should have died 4 or 5 times over, like, during his life and all the plane crashes he was in.
Head injuries can exacerbate things like OCD.
Yeah.
You might have a propensity to it, but you don't have any symptoms. Then you take a couple head injuries and you'll have
I think he definitely did. And then, like, toward the end of his life, he was in so much pain that he was on all kinds of drugs.
He was on morphine. He was a drug addict.
Codeine.
Was it codeine? It was morphine.
It was codeine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when they found his body, he had broken needles in his arms.
Yeah.
Some of them pretty old.
Yeah.
Which is
they didn't find his body. He died in an airplane. They were taking him to a hospital in Houston, and he died
when
in
the authorities had his body. Because getting ahead of the story, he died in the custody of his security agency.
Yeah.
And they had been keeping him a secret for a long time. And because he had a couple of broken needles in his arms that had been in there for a long time, it kind of was evidence that he had been kept unconscious for a long period of time. by the security agencies. They just kept him knocked out. Which I'm sure at that point Hughes didn't mind. There was a couple photographs of him, I think, towards the end of his life, within a few months. I think there's one of them, and he's just unrecognizable.
Yeah, I think when he died, he was only like 90 pounds.
Yeah.
And he was tall. He was 6'3", 6'4", something like that. No.
He didn't eat, and he had scruffy long hair. He looked like a damn bum. Filthy. He hadn't been bathed in years.
And he hadn't, like, cut his fingernails or toenails or anything like that. The weird thing about him was he was completely germ-phobic, but he had a weird thing where he didn't, like, have any compunctions about not washing himself because he thought no germs could come from him, but he thought all germs came from outside, like from other people. Yeah. Like, so he didn't want other people touching him, or he didn't want anything touching him. He had something called, what the hell is it called? Allodynia, something like that, which is kind of like hypersensitivity to, like, shit touching your skin. So a lot of times he would, like, sit in his screening room, like, naked. Because wearing clothes, like, hurt him and stuff. Yeah,
now he said screening room. It was actually a private theater. And it could seat, I think, dozens of people. It was like a movie theater. Pretty weird. I think he stayed in the thing for fucking months at a time. He'd piss in bottles and stack them up in the fucking corners of the room. Yeah. And he'd have have a telephone. He'd watch movies, have them running 24/7. Watch movies. He'd sleep in there and everything. He'd fucking every now and then call some girl and fucking talk to her over the phone. That was it. He didn't let people see him for,
Yeah, because people wouldn't see him for, like...
They didn't know what he looked like.
Yeah. And he would write, like, he had all these legal pads, and he would write all this shit about all the rules around what you're supposed to do.
And a couple times he just ran. He disappeared. They didn't know where he was. We were talking about, like, a couple of years. Yeah. And then he'd just show back up. Pretend like nothing ever happened. They didn't know where he was. Living out in the desert or something.
Bee's Nest says, was he a jar pooper?
No, I don't think so. But he was pissing in the bottles.
He was pissing in bottles and keeping them. I don't know. Yeah, where he had to be pooping somewhere. Although
I think there was a bathroom there. It's just that
all the drugs that he was on made him constipated. So maybe not.
There's no telling.
But yeah, so what he would do when he was in the theater, like, and he'd be closed in there for months at a time, all he would eat was chocolate bars. Yeah. Like chocolate bars and milk.
And you have all these fucking weird stories about Hughes, and these stories all come from his decline. The second half of his life. That's where the Aviator kind of ends. That movie kind of ends in a high note. But then later he declined, and that's what he became. And it's kind of sad because as a young man, he was a fucking handsome and dashing young man.
Yeah, look, I got pictures of him when he was young. Check it out.
He was very, very popular.
Well, that's an older one. Okay.
Yeah, he's in his 40s.
Yeah, there you go.
And he broke a lot of aviation records and race car stuff, and he liked things that had motors and went fast. He was a fucking hot rodder and real good aviation guy. He could sit there and just draw out a fucking blueprint of a fucking plane, or basic layout of a fighter plane, and he goes, make that. And he had Hughes aircraft. He goes, we'll make that. That'll be the best fighter plane ever. He had ideas about counter-rotating props, and later on jets, guided missiles. He built the Spruce Goose, but it wasn't ready in time. He flew it, but he broke a lot of fucking records, long distance flight records and stuff.
Yeah. And like I said, he was real up in Hollywood and stuff, so dated all the actors, made movies. He was a producer, director.
Made a badass World War I movie. I think it was called Hell's Angels.
Hell's Angels, yeah.
And he did some of the flying in it, some of the acrobatics in a World War I biplane. And that was one of his first really bad wrecks because he fucking crashed an airplane in a dive. Yep. And he hit his head on the damn front cockpit of the plane. And he should have been hospitalized. He didn't. He
shook it off.
He shook it off. He was fucked up afterwards. He just hid for several months.
Some of the plane, because he was in multiple plane crashes. Yeah. I believe 4 at least. And, I mean, some of them, one of the later wrecks that he was in, like, it smooshed his heart to the other side of his chest, for Christ's sake. Yeah.
He was tough.
And it's, it's crazy to think that he, like, fucking lived through that shit.
Yeah. He had guys from MIT come. This is when he was young, in his fucking 20s. Had him build him a fucking hand-built prototype steam turbine race car that evidently could go 200 miles an hour. And he looked at it, and saw all those damn heating pipes everywhere. And he says, if I wreck this thing, would I get burned by steam? And they went, oh, yeah. Yeah, you would. And he goes, okay. And he paid for it. It was like about $1 million. He paid for it. But then he turned right around and told this guy, he goes, I want you to hire a team of men with blowtorches and cut this thing into fucking thousands of small pieces and nothing bigger than 4 inches by 4 inches. And they had that car totally cut apart because he was afraid he'd fucking he was afraid he'd drive it.
Yeah.
Because that's the way he was. But it would go 200.
Yeah, he had some issues.
Yeah.
But like I said,
told him it would go 200.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say before we went off on that whole tangent was that, you know, for all of his accomplishments, like in movie making and aviation and stuff like that, which were substantial, I feel like he's mostly remembered nowadays for the OCD and like all the weird shit that he did like toward the end of his life. You know what I mean? Which is kind of a shame, but in some ways, maybe not, because I feel like people remember him, you know, when maybe they wouldn't have, or they wouldn't have as much. Yeah. I mean, if you, even people like that, even younger people nowadays, if you say Howard Hughes, everybody's like, oh, the crazy guy, like that stayed in the fucking theater and like had all the problems. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like people have an idea of him because of that, even though that wasn't like...
Yeah, there's a lot more to him than that.
Even though there was a lot more to him than that. Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess.
Why don't we do the
shout-outs?
The shout-outs and if people send us some gifts, we should say something about that.
Yeah, we should. All right, so let's do some shout-outs. First of all, I want to shout out our newest patron, whose name is Joe. So, hey, welcome. Thank you very much. Also, got some presents. I shouted these out on our matinee show, The Droving. And I think I fucked something up, but I'll fix it now. But yeah, so Michael sent us this right here. Yeah. Steelbook edition, special edition of Friday the 13th. If you didn't see the back, I got to show this again because I love it so much. Mm-hmm. It says, "Killer, Mommy, killer." Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I love that so much. So thank you very much, Michael. Now, these two movies, I think I mistakenly said on the Droving show that Dominic had sent them, but it was actually Louis sent these. So sorry about that. I had a total brain fart. I had it written down over here and everything, but I still fucked it up. But yeah, so this is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, which was actually very, very good. And 7. So I'm very excited about that. This has gone into the little box for the poll for the movie stuff. So we might end up reviewing that at some point. Also, we have 2 shirts that we need to do, Melanie and Victor. We're going to print them tomorrow and either mail them tomorrow or Monday. So you guys should have them sometime next week, probably. And as I said earlier, if you are a patron and you want to vote in the polls, what topic we do next Saturday, what movie review we do next Friday, then go and vote. You have until tomorrow at noon Eastern Standard Time to vote on one of the topics. So go do it. Yeah. Okay? All right. So, you want to start talking about Howard Hughes?
Yeah.
All right. So, like I said, I'm just kind of going to go through his life. If you have any things that you remember from the biography, if I have any things I remember from the biography, we'll like kind of bust in along the timeline. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, we'll just play by ear.
Yeah, like that's what we always do, isn't it? So, so Howard Hughes, born in Texas, although they're not real sure like when exactly he was born. There's like, I don't know. It's the shit that's on his birth certificate is different than like what other people said about it. It's like it's not a huge deal. But so he was probably born somewhere in Texas, 1904. Now, as we said, his dad was also named Howard Hughes Sr. So when Howard was a kid, he was actually known as Sonny. Now, his dad was kind of like one of those dudes that would kind of go all over the country, like looking for oil. You know what I mean? He was also a gambler, womanizer, same kind of thing. So that's where Howard Jr. got it from. But turns out in 1909, while he was kind of like in with all this whole oil drilling shit, he invented and made a prototype for like a really badass drill bit, which as far as I know is still used in oil drilling today.
Yeah, they had a problem getting through the damn bedrock.
Yeah.
All right, it would fuck up the drill bits. You just couldn't get down real deep. So they came up with what you would know a drill bit today, which is it's a shaft. Mm-hmm. It ends in 3 things. They're look like interlocking sprockets, And as you rotate it, it crushes the rock and then moves it up, and it goes around a spiral shaft to throw it out. So there isn't a sharp point.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
It's three interlocking kind of like sprockets. And it kind of crushes and churns up rock and then sends it upwards. And it doesn't lose an edge. It doesn't need an edge. And that's what you need to get down beneath bedrock to get to where the really good oil is.
Yeah.
And they made that, and instead of selling it, they kept the patent and only leased it.
They leased it.
So you made millions of dollars a month by leasing those things out.
I mean,
to oil companies,
his
to
dad's
oil rigs.
company made a ridiculous amount of money. A ridiculous amount.
To sell it would just be stupid.
Yeah.
So
well, because then it'd be one and done. If you lease
it'd be one and done, and that was it.
Yeah.
So if you wanted one, you had to pay monthly, and you didn't own it. They just loaned it to you.
Yeah.
And they rode that thing until the fucking patent was up.
Yeah. But yeah, they made a shit ton of money. So like his dad
that's
actually,
where the fortune came from.
Yeah. So when Sonny, like, you know, Howard Hughes Jr. was a kid, like his dad pretty much struck it rich with this company. It should be noted too that his mom, Aline, also came from a very, very wealthy family. She was like one of those Texas debutante type of people. So her family was wealthy as well. So it's not like he came from nothing. He came from like a very wealthy family. Now, when he was a kid, very famously, he had like his dad was always off like gallivanting. Like I said, he was always he was out in Hollywood because Howard Hughes's uncle Rupert was actually kind of a big deal in Hollywood. He was a screenwriter, and he, you know, had a big mansion out there and like worked for MGM or one of those studios out there. So so what would happen was Rupert and Howard Hughes's dad would go out to Hollywood and like go bed all the starlets and all that other kind of shit. So again, that's kind of where
that's what dudes did back then.
That's where Howard got that from. Now, his mom, the thing about it is I hate to shit on people's moms for like messing up the kids. Because I feel like what happened with the mom was that, you know, she came from a wealthy family. She didn't work, obviously, because a lot of women didn't back then, especially wealthy ones. She had, you know, maids and nannies and stuff, so she didn't have to like keep house or do anything around the house. All she had was this one kid, and that was kind of like, you know, her husband wasn't around. He was always off fucking around, which she kind of knew about, and she was unhappy, but it's like not a lot you could do about it. So basically,
that was the culture at the time.
Yeah, so basically all she had was this kid. So she decided she was going to like pour all of her attention into this child.
She needed a hobby.
Yeah, she didn't really have that. Yeah. So the thing about it was that she was very, very, helicopter parent. She was like super, super overprotective. And she was a little bit, I don't know if she had full on OCD herself, but she was real germ phobic. She was always like worried about, she would kind of like check his teeth every day and check his feet and like check his fingernails. She'd like always make sure that he would, and she didn't really want him to go anywhere. Like she would only let him ride his bike like up and down, like in front of the house, like back and forth in front of the house, because she didn't want him to go anyplace.
My take of it is that she wasn't too much fun to be around, and her husband was like happy to get out of the house, get away from her. You know, he had a lot of money, so he'd go fucking chase after other women and stuff, but he'd come back. He took care of her. But I think she wasn't fucking really all there mentally. And then him fucking splitting like that made her mental problems worse.
Yeah.
And then I think it kind of fucking gave Howard some issues. That's what I think happened.
It did, yeah.
That's how I remembered it from the book.
Yeah. I definitely do think her being so overprotective and her being so germ-phobic, disease-phobic, that definitely had an impact on him. And she didn't like him to go any place. So, the
author of the book that I read, based on his sources, she was kind of described as being kind of annoying.
Yeah.
That she was kind of an annoying woman. That people didn't really like her all that much. She evidently was real good looking though.
Yeah.
But she was like hard to be around. So,
well, like I said, she was kind of a society woman.
and I think the dad splitting made her problems worse.
Well, yeah.
You know, made her personality a little bit harder to even be around. She needed a hobby. She needed a boyfriend. That's what she needed.
Yeah.
That'd have made it a lot better. He wouldn't have cared, I don't think.
Although it's hard to say because, like I said, a lot of dudes like that seem to have like a double standard. It's like they want to run around and fuck around, but then it's like the second their wife does it, they're like, "Oh no!"
She could have got away with it. From what I remember,
Probably he wasn't around.
He was never around. From what I remember, like hardly ever around.
Yeah, that's kind of the impression that I got.
And he didn't even really have a big relationship with Howard. He didn't really give a shit.
Yeah.
That's how I remember it.
And it's weird because Howard seemed to have, he took after his mom in a lot of ways, but he took after his dad in a lot of ways too. Like the womanizing, the kind of like, once you're out of his life, he just cuts you out completely and he doesn't really think about you anymore. Yeah,
he was single though. It was different.
Although a lot of the women that he was banging weren't, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't always single though. He married a few times and he was still, he married at least twice, maybe maybe 3
serial
times.
Behavior for him though. I mean,
it was, yeah. That was everybody knew.
He was a rich guy. He was good looking. He was popular. He was a celebrity. He was always in the newspapers. You're talking about that, like fucking Stark. You know, you're talking about a dude that was a known fucking billionaire, and he was a very eligible bachelor, and he wore it out.
Oh yeah, big time.
He wore that shit out, and he only dated fucking hot young starlets. That's what he was into.
Yep.
And if you gave him any shit, he just got rid of you. He replaced you with another one. So.
Well, it's like he didn't have to replace you because he had had 3 or 4 or 5 going women at the same time.
But and
they didn't always know about one another.
But that's what you would do. I was in a similar situation like that in Brazil. That's what you do. You do it because you can. You're young and you can. You know.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, I don't know why he didn't get sick of it.
He never seemed to, though.
No. I think it was just normal for him.
I mean, other than when his mental illness started taking over and he just withdrew from everybody, it really does seem like he just never got tired of it.
Yeah.
I don't think he really... I don't know. I don't know if he actually loved any of them.
I think it was just default behavior. It was just
some people have thought that he did, that there were some of them that he did actually love. But it was hard to tell because he would tell all of them like the same shit. You know what I mean? He bought them like the same, all the same engagement ring, like with the emerald on it. Like he bought like 12 or 13 different ones of those. And it's like he would tell like every woman the same exact thing. So it's hard to tell like if...
It was just ass.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think.
It just seemed like...
I think it was just default behavior. That's how he grew up doing that. And that was just normal for him.
And that's what his dad did. So I guess he's just like, oh, that's what you do.
Yeah, that's what you do. And he could. Like, if you have enough money to eat at all the restaurants, why don't you eat at all the restaurants?
Yeah.
You don't eat at one restaurant. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
If you have enough money for a bunch of cars, why do you want one car? You just have a bunch of cars.
Well, that's what when I was watching. There's a documentary on Tubi called "The Passions of Howard Hughes" that's based on a book. That's just kind of all about his womanizing and all the actors and stuff. And they talked to like Mamie Van Doren and like people that actually knew him and dated him back in the day. Jane Russell and stuff. And one woman on there, I can't remember. Terry Moore, I think it was, who actually said she married him. I might get into that a little bit later on. They're not entirely sure because there's no proof of it. But she said that Howard was like a little boy in a candy store. It's like he has both of his hands full of candy, but he just like looks at all the other candy. Yeah. And he just like he just wants all of the candy.
That's what I'm imagining.
That's pretty much what she said he was like.
That's what I'm imagining.
But he got away with it because he was super charming. She said that he could talk his way out of anything.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
Or he could buy his way out of anything.
That too.
Which he did. He killed people and bought his way out of it.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think he didn't
on purpose.
He didn't mean to,
but he did it. Yeah.
It was his negligence and he was drunk driving.
Yeah.
He was drunk driving.
It's okay. He was Howard Hughes.
That's what I mean. Rich people can get away with it.
Yeah. They weren't going to put him in jail.
Anything.
They weren't going to put that dude in jail.
Yeah. So he had kind of like a really weird, I've seen it called a quote unquote emotionally incestuous relationship with his mom. He apparently, allegedly, slept in bed with her until he was 10 years old, which I thought was a little strange. When he was 10, finally, he was able to convince his mom to like send him to this camp. It was like a Boy Scout camp, summer camp type of thing, like for 8 weeks. And she kind of freaked out like at first. She didn't like him being away, but she finally conceded, and he really liked it. He liked being like outdoors, and she kind of, I think he did it a couple years in a row. Now the second year, I think something bad happened and she like wigged out and had to come pick him up and everything because that's just the way she was. But, you know. So even when he was in school, he was obviously really, really intelligent, but he was kind of meh about school. Like, he was really into science and math and shit like that, but he liked to build things. He was a tinkerer.
Yeah, the book that I read had more details on that. He thought school fucking sucked because there were other students in it, which meant that the program had to go more slowly. So later on, when he was old enough,
I get that.
When later on, when he was after he got emancipated, he was just hiring professors to come and tutor him, and he could cover years of material in a matter of months if it was just him. And we're not talking about some kind of mensis or anything. You know, he was very high IQ, probably about 145, 150 at least, I'd say. It's just that, you know, school is slow. You know what I mean? You got to go and you got to fucking do homework and then turn in papers and this and that, and it's a process. You could speed that up if it's just one person.
Yeah.
And a teacher working, and that's what he was doing.
Well, because you don't have to worry about everyone else. Because sometimes, like, other people take longer to get a certain, concept than others. And it's like, so everyone has to kind of, like, be back at that level.
One-on-one, Howard could learn it one-on-one with a professor in discussions and drawing it out and explaining it. He could learn it fucking quick.
Yeah.
That's how he learned aviation. Fucking aviation engineering. What do they call it? I guess you could call it aerospace engineering. Yeah. Aero engineering.
Well, yeah, I mean, when he figured out that he wanted to learn to fly, he basically, I mean, he had the money then, so he just went up to a guy that was a good pilot, and he said, hey, I'll give you $100 a day, like back then.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
To teach me to fly. And the guy was like, can do.
Right.
So, you know.
And he wasn't like a shithouse engineer. I mean, he knew all the theorems and the formulas. He could do all the math. You know, he was the real thing.
Yeah.
He could do it. He could even draw out blueprints.
Yeah, he did do that. Louis Hernandez says, I think he attended Caltech. I think he did as well, although his aunt has said that he just... Because there's actually... I don't think there's any record of him there, but his aunt said that he had...
Tutors.
That he had... what do you call it when you go to the class but you don't get a grade for it?
Oh, honorary?
No. Shit. What's that word?
I don't know.
What's that word?
You don't get a grade for it.
Yeah, it's like
I don't know.
Shit. I'll probably think of it like in 5. I had it and then like it slipped away. But yeah, I audit. There you go. Thank you. We audit the class. Yeah. His aunt said that he audited some classes at Caltech.
Yeah, Howard did not give a shit at all about diplomas.
Yeah, now everybody's like it's audit.
Yeah. Howard did not give a shit about doctorates, diplomas, degrees, or any kind of paper or any kind of official shit. From his point of view, that was for poor people. That's what you needed to get jobs. He gave people jobs. You know what I mean? He could buy anything he wanted. He wanted the knowledge, but he didn't need formal schooling to make himself feel better about himself. You know what I'm talking about? He didn't need it.
Well, yeah, I mean...
what's he going to do? Get a job?
He had money.
The guy was a fucking billionaire.
So he didn't really...
He ended up basically owning Hughes Aerospace, you know? He doesn't need anything. That's what his employees had. That's the way he looked at it.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, so like I said, when he was a kid, he had the first, like, wireless radio transmitter. He built, like, the first motorized bicycle. He was, like, in the newspaper and shit. He went to, like, some private schools in Massachusetts. Now, thank you very much, Dan. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Let me see some flash bulbs, people. Thank you very much.
So, now...
I'm trying to get at least $100 out of you people tonight. I got bills to pay.
We do. I have so many bills. But, yeah. So, in 1922, when Howard was about 16 years old, his mom actually went in for a routine surgery. They put her under anesthetic, and she died. Weird. So it was, well, it happens. Some people don't have a good reaction to anesthetic. That's why they are always like kind of warning you about it. But yeah. The strange thing about it is that even though he'd been like weirdly close to his mom, a lot of his family members have said he behaved very strangely, not the way they would have expected. It was almost just kind of like the next day he's like, oh, well, time to like get over that. You know what I mean? It's like he seemed to get over it really quickly. I don't know if he really did or if he was just really good at like I don't know. He was a weird dude, and he was just like good at tamping down his emotions. I'm not really sure. So yeah, so he was 16 when his mom died, and then I think it was actually I think they found out later that it was an ectopic pregnancy that had killed her. The anesthetic killed her. I'm not really sure. One of the other two things. Now, when a few years later, when Howard was 19, his dad dropped dead of a heart attack in his office. He was just like standing by his desk, and boop, he just fell on the floor and died. Now, interestingly, back in the 1920s, this is very weird. I didn't know this. Back in the 1920s, you weren't considered an adult until you were 21. I mean, now it's 18, but back then it was 21. So Howard was only 19, so he wasn't really considered an adult yet, which is very strange. So he ended up having to basically go to court to get emancipated, like, from his family. Now, what ended up happening, his dad had, you know, the Hughes, like, tool and die company or whatever the hell it was called, which was worth, like, all the money. And what was supposed to happen upon his dad's death, because he had written a will, was that half of it was supposed to go to his wife, Aileen, Howard's mother, and then like 25% of it was supposed to go to Howard, and the other 25% was supposed to go to Howard's grandparents or some other relatives or something. Well, since Howard's mother was already dead, Howard ended up getting 75% of the company, and then he went and bought the other quarter of the shares from his relatives, so he owned the whole fucking shop as soon as he got emancipated. Yeah. And like I said, this was a massively, massively lucrative company. And I mean, the fact that he used that company to fund every single thing he wanted to do, like fucking Hollywood movie productions, like all the aviation shit he did, everything like that. I mean, this was like a money printing machine, this company. Yeah. Especially during wartime and stuff like that. It made like all kind of fucking money. And it seemed like it was never going to run out.
Yeah, he eventually bought something called RKO Pictures.
RKO Pictures,
which
yeah.
some of you older people might remember that one. So black and white movies. They'd have a damn globe, and on the top there'd be a radio tower with fucking beams coming out of it and a plane flying around it like a model. That is Howard Hughes, and that was his fucking company logo, and that's his plane. He was breaking some kind of record that he was famous for.
Yeah.
And fucking RKO Pictures. And he built RKO Pictures to get laid. He just wanted...
Well, it's RKO Pictures was already there. He bought it.
He bought it, but...
And he actually... he didn't do very well, like financially. He kind of ran it into the ground.
Yeah,
like,
he didn't make money
because they were making like a bunch more movies, but then he took it over and like all this kind of shit happened. He kind of did it just
to get girls.
Yeah, which is like funny to think about, but that's legitimately true.
That's why he did it,
and it's kind of shitty because, and I might get into this.
He was young at the time, though.
I might get into this a little bit later, but it's kind of shitty because one thing that he would do once he had his own movie studio was that he would find all of these girls, you know, and he would discover them, and then he would make them sign a contract. He would give them a car. He would give them a place to live. And he would say that he's going to put them in movies, but he would never put them in movies, but he wouldn't let them
make movies.
He wouldn't let them make movies for anybody else, so he pretty much tanked their careers.
Yeah. And then he wouldn't even date them. A lot of them.
Well, because there were so many.
He'd forget about them.
Yeah. Because as soon as a new one came along, he'd be like, ooh, there's another one.
Yeah, he'd forget about them. And then he'd have his whole security agency tailing all of them to make sure they weren't fucking around on him.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't even know that they were dating him.
Yeah.
That was Howard. That's the way Howard was.
Howard's whole thing, he just wanted control.
He wanted to possess these
women.
Of
everything. I mean, in pretty much he wanted, even, it wasn't just women, it was like movie production, he wanted control of every single detail.
He's a trip.
And you know what I mean? See, he was very, very obsessive like that. I think that was very, a couple of the people that I saw in this documentary, because I watched a couple different documentaries about him, but some people that had known him and dated him and stuff were like, it's weird because a lot of them like said that he did some really deeply shitty stuff, and that he was really ruthless in a lot of ways. But like as a person, he was actually pretty likable, and like really charming and stuff, which is probably why he got away with a bunch of this shit, because he was so likable. But a lot of women said that they liked him because he was insecure.
Yeah. Do you gonna talk about Jean Harlow?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get.
You gonna talk about the boat?
Which boat?
Okay. You know what I'm talking about. They had this famous actress back then. Her name was Jean Harlow. If you look at her, she's not bad looking, but there's not a whole lot to look at, if you ask me. I didn't think she's all that. But she had this real bad girl image. And he liked her. He thought she was sexy. But he didn't want to be seen with her. So he bought a yacht just to date Jean Harlow, to get her away from fucking the land. So he screwed her on the yacht. Did you know about that?
I actually hadn't read. I read that he actually never dated Jean Harlow.
No, this book said that they did. They were secretly
because
seeing
there
each
were
other for a
some.
long
I
time.
mean, he dated pretty much everybody, but there were a couple people that he put in movies that he was like the start of their career, like Jane Russell and Jean Harlow and stuff. That he, for some reason, kind of kept them at arm's length.
For the book I read, he would have Jean Harlow taken out to the damn boat, and then he would go there and meet her on the damn boat. It was a big ass fucking pleasure yacht.
Yeah.
And they'd spend the whole weekend out there on the yacht. And then they'd part ways. But evidently they had something going on for a couple years.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I don't know. I'm just saying that most of the shit I read said that he didn't.
But that's some funny shit when
that he wasn't. It might have been somebody else you're thinking of though too.
That's some funny shit when you want to screw this girl, but you have to buy a whole yacht to keep everybody from finding out about it.
Well, he could afford it. So
Yeah.
I guess he didn't really care.
Yeah.
But yeah, so during this time, like I said, now Howard had always been into like airplanes and aviation and shit. He'd like learned to fly, got a pilot's license and everything. But in the early 1920s, what he was really interested in was movies. And he was super into movies. He would just he had his own screening room. He would sit and watch all the movies. There's a story that, and I'm not sure what year this happened, but that he bought a local television station just so he could tell it what movies to show.
Yeah.
And he would call it and say I'm sick of this movie, put a different one on. Even he was in the middle of one and stuff. Right. He would do shit like that. Or if he had to go to the can or something, he'd come back and call and be like, hey, can you back it up 5 minutes? I was in the bathroom. It's shit like that. I don't know if that's true, but it's
probably is true.
That's another story that went around about him, that he bought a whole TV so he could have control over what movies that they showed.
Well, it makes sense. They didn't have VCR back then.
I know, isn't that weird? It's now it seems dumb nowadays because it's just now you can just pause shit. You can just watch shit whenever you want to.
Building.
But yeah, back then.
Back then you needed a whole building, so you couldn't have it in your apartment.
Yeah.
So it made more sense to just buy the television station local near you, and just tell it what to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
good
thinking.
That's what he did.
It's very good thinking.
But I just thought that was very funny.
Yeah.
So he was super into movies. So 1926, he moves out to Hollywood. Now, like I said, he did have all the money, and also he had kind of an in Hollywood because his uncle was a very well-respected screenwriter, movie director out there. So he had some connections before he went out there. Now, so he goes out there and starts making movies. The first couple that he made were not real successful. He actually just started out as a producer, just giving money to other directors. But after a while, he would get into arguments over how the movie should be done and this, that, and the other. So a lot of times he's just well, I'm just going to direct it myself. Because like I said, he had to have control over everything. Now, so he ended up producing 2 Arabian Nights from 1927. Which actually won an Academy Award. I don't know. That movie might be lost. Might be one of the ones, because a lot of ones from that era are gone. Now, also in 1927, he started working on a movie called Hell's Angels. Now, this was going to be set during World War I, and Howard Hughes was very concerned. He wanted this to be the most realistic flying movie ever. So he had these people scouring the countryside, finding actual planes from World War I, finding actual people that had pilots that had flown to World War I to put in the movie, to augment the stunt pilots.
It had German pilots from the war and everything.
He wanted it to be super.
It was basically a war reenactment.
Yeah. Because they were reenacting the dogfights and stuff, because he wanted everything absolutely perfect.
Dudes got killed during the filming of it.
They did. I think 3 men got killed during. I believe it was 3 men got killed during the making of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this movie, because he was so exacting, this movie took 3 years to make or something like that. Because what ended up happening was
by the time it was out, it was already old fashioned.
Well, no. What ended up happening was that when they were a little more than halfway through it, talkies started to become with the jazz singer and all that kind of stuff. Now, Hell's Angels had first been made as a silent movie, So he's like, okay, well, we have to start all over again. We have to like
Yep.
I don't think they started all over again. They kept some of the footage, but all the dialogue shit had to be redone and everything like that. Now, the actress that had been in the movie to start with, her name was Greta Nissen. Now, she's a beautiful woman. However, when talkies came along, she had a real thick Norwegian accent. So that wasn't happening. So that's where Jean Harlow came in. Now, apparently, Howard Hughes... I mean, Jean Harlow, that wasn't her real name. That wasn't anything like, she didn't look like that. Like her hair didn't look like that. Nothing like that. So Howard Hughes pretty much took over her entire look, like what she looked like. He told her to like bleach her hair like that. He told her to dress like that. He told her to act like that. So she was kind of like a creation of his. And so she ended up being in Hell's Angels, and that's kind of how she got famous. But yeah, so even though the movie took 3 years to make, it went like super, super over budget, as it would. But it did come out in 1930. And it got like pretty good reviews. Like the story wasn't any great shakes. It was just kind of like a drama about like two pilots that fall in love in World War I, blah, blah, blah. But all of the critics really loved like all the flying shit. And it's like, that was really impressive. So that kind of like went a long way toward it being sort of a classic, because that's like the first time that had been done on the screen.
I think that movie was the first time Howard had a serious head injury, was making that movie.
Yeah, because I think one of the dogfight things, like he did a dive himself, and he didn't pull up in time, and the plane went right into the ground.
Well, it wasn't that he didn't pull up in time. I think he broke a wing spar. He was in a fucking powered dive, and he was supposed to pull up in time, and he was... From the book I remember reading, he got into an argument with the German pilot. The German pilot was like, "I'm not going to do that, man. The fucking wing spar will break." And fucking
Howard's like, "I'll do it."
Howard's trying to fucking convince him, no, the wing spar will make it, and he's like,
"You just got to believe."
Yeah, I think he was trying to show him some theorems and some fucking math, going, "No, it'll take it." And that German pilot, he had practical experience.
Nope, been out of here.
with that plane, and he's like, "No, it won't make it."
He's like, "9."
And Howard says, "Okay, then I'll do it. And the pilot's like, "Go ahead, do it. You do it." And he's like,
and he did.
He did it.
He crashed though.
Yeah, the wing spar, if I remember correctly, the wing spar broke at pretty low altitude. He was pulling out. It wasn't a straight down dive into the ground. It was pulling out, but he bellied in to the ground, with a fucking broken wing, and I think he hit it at probably like about 130, But, the planes of wood, it crushed and took a lot of the impact, but his head fucking hit that damn metal gas tank.
Yep.
There is no dashboard. The dashboard was the gas tank in a World War I fighter plane.
Yeah.
And his head hit that. He was wearing a cloth fucking helmet, but
because
it's just not enough.
They just had like some bullshit, not even helmets back then. It's just like made of like a quilt.
It was it was padded quilt, fucking wrapped in leather. That was the normal helmet for the day.
Alex Rivera said, "I think we can all identify with having to buy a yacht every once in a while to get out of a pickle. Who hasn't been there, right?"
Yeah. That was the story from the book that I read, that he bought that yacht just so he could screw Jean Harlow in secret.
That may be true, but like I said, I read a couple other biographies of him and saw like a couple documentaries about it, and they didn't mention that. They actually mentioned that Jean Harlow was one of the few women that he didn't really, because she was more like a professional relationship type of thing. Although it didn't stop him sometimes, but
I think he hit everything he could that looked good.
He probably did. Like it did seem like
it
did seem like he
did. I think that was just part of being around Hughes. I
mean, pretty much every actress you can think of from Hollywood's golden age, he slept with that woman.
If you were going to be around,
I can't think of any that he didn't.
If you were a good-looking woman and you were going to be around Howard Hughes, you were going to give it up. I think that was pretty much the rule of the day.
Well, and he didn't. The thing about him was that he didn't really seem to be rapey particularly. No. It's just that he was, at that time, he wasn't married, so he was a very eligible bachelor, and he was a charming dude. He was a good dancer. Even Ginger fucking Rogers said that he was one of the best dancers she'd ever seen, and Ginger Rogers would know. So
you're talking about an alpha male of the time, okay? A billionaire in the fucking 20s and 30s, all right, who was good looking and who was very intelligent. He was going to get what he wanted Women were throwing themselves at him.
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't like he had to go looking for it. It seemed like everybody, he was pretty much the most eligible bachelor in Hollywood. So a lot of actresses were just like...
They were just throwing themselves at him.
Pretty much.
And, you know, anytime he was mentioned he'd be mentioned in the newspapers and in tabloids and in magazines and on television. He was just mentioned in glowing terms, you know. Fucking everybody loved him.
Yeah.
So you're not talking about some, you know, Epstein motherfucker, you know, or fucking, you know what I mean, one of these, who's the other guy from Weinstein? You're not talking about a guy like Eric Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein. It's all the same to me. I don't care. Fucking, you know who I'm talking about.
But yeah, he really didn't seem to, he didn't have to, like, bribe anybody or anything like that. He just seemed to be really charming. He did have, like, a few creepy kind of things, like having girls followed and shit like that, which is creepy, but other than that, he didn't really seem to have to resort to anything like that, like to get women. He was weird. He didn't want to be made a fool of. Okay, so he didn't want to be dating some girl, all right, and then she cheated on him and other people knew that she was cheating. Yeah. So he didn't want to look like a sucker. Right. And I think that was most of what it was, with these agents keeping tabs on these girls. Yeah, he wanted control of everything. Yeah,
he wanted to make sure he wasn't being played. And he wanted to make sure that he wasn't dealing with some kind of fucking two-time agent, you know, somebody who was just using him for his money. I think that's what it was. Yeah. Based on what I was able to collect.
And like I said, it really never seemed to me, even though he really seemed to enjoy spending time with women, he liked the company of women, he liked having a beautiful woman on his arm, and according to many of his female friends and a lot of the women that he dated that, you know, became friends later on, like Katharine Hepburn, that he was actually like a really nice guy, but it really didn't seem like, he doesn't come across as someone that was capable of loving someone. You know what I mean? In the way that a lot of people are. I'm not saying that I just think that he was like kind of emotionally distant in that way. But I don't think he saw a problem with it. You know what I'm saying?
Now, around this time, I don't remember the names of the girls involved, but he had to have this, there was this big event on top of one of these buildings. It was in one of these damn one of these circular restaurants, and everybody was going to be there. And it was kind of like the dining room was in the center of it. And, you know, the kitchen was in the center of the top floor. The dining room went around it, you know, in a circle. That way everybody could see out. And he invited some girl to go with him to this big event. And then later on, he invited another one. And his assistant said, "Wait a minute, you invited two girls to go to that." And he's like, "I think I could do that, though." You know,
it's like a sitcom plot.
Yeah, he's like, I think I could do that, though. And what he did is he had two tables reserved on opposite sides. The kitchen was in between them, so you couldn't see it. Okay. And then he had telephones brought to both tables. And he had his friend. He would go to one fucking table and party with one girl for a while, and he'd have his friend. He had it all set on a fucking timetable. And his friend would call him.
It's like so much trouble.
His friend would call him on the phone. And he'd start talking business with him. Motherfuckers, "Oh, hold on, I gotta go. I gotta take care of something.
I got some important business shit.
And then he'd leave and go to the other fucking side of the restaurant and go hang out with that girl for 45 minutes or an hour or so. And then the phone would ring. That phone would ring, and he'd do it again. Oh yeah, and he'd start talking to his buddy, you know, over the telephone, and start like they were talking business. And then he'd tell her, "I gotta go. I'll be right back." So he was able to bounce from one table to the next for that entire evening by playing this telephone game.
Now, one story that I heard that was similar to that was on this documentary that was on Tubi that I watched earlier today, was that he had Thanksgiving dinner with this one girl that he was dating. Now, I should note that one of the girls he was dating and was engaged to at some point was 15, so, you know.
Yeah, that wasn't unusual in that day, though.
What was her, Faith something? I can't remember how to pronounce her last name. But so I don't remember if it was her, but he had Thanksgiving dinner with one of the girls and their family. And then he went somewhere else to have Thanksgiving dinner with somebody else. And then, like, someone saw him there and was like, that's like the 4th Thanksgiving dinner he's had today. Like, we saw him over here having Thanksgiving dinner with this person. It's like, where's he putting all this fucking food? Because he had, like, 5 different Thanksgiving dinners with, like, 5 different dates, like, on that fucking day.
Well, evidently he had kind of a thrill-seeking streak in him. And that he would do that. He would take multiple girls on the same date in the same location. And keep them all separate.
Yeah.
That was like a thing. He thought
Sandra
that was cool.
says, I'd be much too lazy to date 2 guys, and that was right. It's like, God, one guy's enough trouble.
He was young though at this time. If I remember correctly, when he was doing this, he was still in his 20s.
Even when I was young one.
So this isn't something that a guy in his 40s does, probably 40s or 50s.
Well, some do, but it's sad.
Yeah, this is something that a guy in his 20s would think that was real fucking cool. He would think he was fucking James Bond doing that shit.
Yeah, he's like all.
Yeah, I got over.
He got like all this, like he's got all these little schedules like worked out.
Yeah.
And it's like it looks like a little football kind of shit
exactly.
with like little arrows and X's and O's and shit all over.
Yeah.
Doing an end run around this way for fucking.
And not knowing that a real player would just have them all at the same table at the same time. But he couldn't think like that, I guess.
Another story too was that he was dating. I think he start out dating, I can't remember which one was older, because Joan Fontaine and Olivia de Havilland were sisters, and they already had a pretty famously contentious relationship, but one of them, the older one, I can't remember which one was the older, maybe, I think it was Joan Fontaine, she started dating Howard Hughes, and then he got introduced to the younger one, Olivia de Havilland. I might be getting them reversed, but it's the same story anyway. So he started going out with the other one, and then the other one found out about it, like, because he was dating one, and then he went over to the restaurant across the street with the other one, and she came over there, and she was like, aha! So there was, like, this big... So, they, like I said, those 2 sisters were already kind of at each other's throats anyway, and then after that, they didn't get along so well after that whole shit. But yeah, so 1932, Howard Hughes produces Scarface. Based on the life of Al Capone, obviously. And, the one more recently is probably the more famous one, but it was a remake, which maybe a lot of people don't know. So he makes this movie, and then he immediately runs into a problem with the Hays Code. Howard Hawks actually directed this. Howard Hughes did not direct it, but he did produce it. So they run into problems with the Hays Code because this movie was like super violent. Because like I said, Howard Hughes was very into let's make this as realistic as possible. We want all these gun battles and all this kind of shit like to be realistic. So it was really violent, and Hays Code were like, no, you have to cut this out. So it went back and forth for like, which is why a lot of the movies that Howard Hughes worked on went way over budget and took like forever to do. Not only because he was super anal retentive about every single detail, but also because he kept getting in trouble for various things, and he would have to keep going back to them. Then he would fight them. What if the
uncut versions exist?
Well, the uncut version did actually come out because he fought against the Hays Code. Now, one thing that I saw a documentary about him, and they said, he didn't really care, ideologically about censorship. It was just kind of like, one, he didn't like being told what to do. So if somebody said, hey, you can't do that in your movie, he's like, fuck you, I can do whatever I want. But 2, he also liked to court controversy because he knew that would make more people go see the movie.
Right.
So he liked it in that sense. So he liked to make a big stink about how they were trying to like censor his movie and everything. Yeah. So, so in the end, there was a lot of back and forth. It took forever, but they he finally succeeded in releasing it either completely uncut or, essentially uncut, even though it was very violent. It turned out to be like a really big hit. Now, another movie that he was a producer of, and this was several years later, this was in 1940, that's probably one of his better known production credits, is the movie The Outlaw, which introduced the world to the assets of Jane Russell. Now, Jane Russell was, this was actually her first movie. She had just come to Hollywood and she was like discovered. I believe she was only 18 when this movie came out, so she was very inexperienced. But she comes in, Howard Hughes sees her knockers, and it's pretty much like, yeah, we're gonna put her in the movie.
Yeah, he made a bra for her.
Yeah, although it's very interesting because so she's in the movie, and so he's like shooting her from all these different angles and everything. And he wants her boobs to look complete. He was a total boob dude, by the way.
Yeah,
he
he knew what was up.
He was like really into like big buxom boob women. Like I said, he loved Mamie Van Doren and all that other kind of stuff. So those big old titties.
Yeah.
So he's trying to get like the platonic ideal of the tit. You know what I'm saying? So he goes and he designs. So the story goes, he designed a special bra for Jane Russell to best, exemplify the boobage.
I think I saw it, but I didn't really understand what he was going for.
In the best way possible. Well, here, the thing about it, though, is that, so he designed it, according to her, because she was interviewed in this documentary that I saw, she wore it for a little while, but there was like a whole bunch of metal and shit in it, so it was like super, super uncomfortable. So she's like, basically, she just went in her dressing room and like rigged up her own shit, like with a regular bra and like sticking some other things in there, and then just told him that it was that. And she's like, she didn't think that he would be like ballsy enough to actually like honk and check. So she just wore that because she said the thing that he designed was way
He thought that was good enough?
Well, yeah. Well, he didn't know. He thought that it was the one that he had designed. But she said, yeah, I wasn't wearing that because it was way too uncomfortable. It was like all of like fucking metal widgets. It was like cantilevers and all this other kind of shit. She's like, it was ridiculous. And she's like, I wasn't wearing that. It was like super uncomfortable. So she just went in the room and like made like her own kind of cobbled together one that was like similar. Yeah. It's like, the thing about it's like
he tried to be rational and tried to do it with an engineer's mind.
But it's like, it's you can't do that because I mean it's bad enough even nowadays, even in this enlightened age. It's very, very hard to find a bra that's comfortable. You know what I mean?
No.
You don't know. You don't know what I mean. Women know what I mean. It's very, very hard to find one that's comfortable. It's like pretty much every single one, and they're expensive. They're like $50 each. And then you buy one, and then it's like it never fits exactly right. I don't think I've ever had a bra that fit exactly the way it was supposed to. I don't think I've ever had a piece of clothing ever that fit exactly the way it was supposed to. It's very frustrating. But yeah, so that was kind of like a big, and he got into trouble too with the Hayes office on The Outlaw because pretty much because it wasn't that great of a movie. I believe they called it, the genre was sex western. Like, it wasn't even really, like, historically accurate or anything. It was supposed to be, like, about Billy the Kid, Doc Holliday, all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't, like, historically accurate. It was pretty much like Jane Russell's boobs, the movie. And they pretty much put her in all of the advertising. And, I mean, the advertising, it's still, I don't know if it's still famous now, but, I mean, when I was growing up, I remember seeing that ad everywhere of her, like, laying in the fucking hay bale or whatever with the gun, and then like with the blouse like off one shoulder with like the big titties.
I don't remember them being that big though.
Well, they weren't like freakishly big, but I guess for the time they were.
For the time,
because they didn't. I mean, this was like the 1930s, 1940s. They didn't really like people didn't really get breast implants.
It wasn't like
so that wasn't a thing.
Breast implants really weren't a thing until the fucking 50s.
Yeah,
and very rare, even in the. Do you know where breast implants came from?
Where's that?
Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Japanese invention. Post-war Japan, they realized the prostitution was legal there.
Yeah.
And the Japanese girls realized that they could get more money from a GI if they had big boobs. So Japanese scientists figure out how to fucking make bigger boobs. Ain't that some stupid shit? Yeah, they were like, we can figure out how to. Men, we need to put our heads together. This is a fucking.
Priority one.
Priority one. This is a fucking top issue for fucking national fucking security. These bitches gotta have some bigger ass titties. Okay, man. And they came up with fucking. It first started just with fucking silicone injections. They would just directly inject it right into the fucking.
Which I feel like now people do that now just to be like on the cheapy side, but that's probably not the best thing. Like they injected it in their asses and stuff.
I saw a bunch of fucking different things on this. Everything now, for a long time, silicone was kind of banned in the United States. The way to go was you had a silicone rubber balloon basically as the implant, and they filled it full of saline. Okay. The problem with that though is saline doesn't weigh what silicone gel weighs. So it doesn't quite move. It's not quite heavy enough.
Doesn't have the proper floppage.
Right. It doesn't flop as much as a fucking... Well, in Brazil, they never had that problem. They just used straight silicone. All right. You can put silicone into a fucking that same implant, and it gets... the shape is easier to maintain, but it has a nice weight. It has a natural movement to it.
Pendulousness.
Yeah, right. Now, one of the things that they noticed with this is that if the silicone implant ruptures, the gel or the silicone gel can escape the implant, but it doesn't permeate through the scar that has formed around the implant. So it stays in there.
Yeah.
So a lot of women's silicone implants have ruptured decades ago, but the implant's still there. Okay?
Because of the scar tissue.
Because of the scar tissue. There's no difference between having the silicone up against that scar tissue and having the implant against the scar tissue, because it's both silicone. So that goes back to the whole idea of, why the fuck is there an implant? Why not just inject the silicone? There are some fucking doctors that still say that's the most sensible way. But it requires a little more of an artistic touch to get the look right.
Well, yeah, because you can't just, like, stick the needle in and, like, squirt it everywhere, because you're going to get, like, all kind of weird lumps and shit.
But there was, back in the early days of just injecting silicone directly into the fucking flesh, there were real artists that knew how to do it. All right? And to get a real good look. And you could adjust it. You know what I mean? Like, if you could come back later and he goes, I think I'm going to add a little bit more here. And, you can do it in the ass and everything. And the only people doing that now that I know of, really, are just like Brazilian street hookers.
Yeah.
And they have problems every now and then because the silicone they're getting is like something that industrial grade shit. You know what I mean? It's not medical grade silicone. So it might have bacteria in it. It's been stored in fucking containers that are not that clean.
That's what I mean. It's not sterile.
But I've saw some fucking shit from doctors that in a big debate about that they should just fucking go right back to the fucking silicone. But I don't think they'll ever do it. You know why? Because they know people will be able to source fucking medical grade silicone and do it at home and save a lot of money.
Mark says Tom missed his calling.
Yeah, really did. I did miss my calling. I should have been a plastic surgeon.
You probably should have been. He's boob obsessed.
Yeah.
Trevor Trigger says it's like build a boob workshop. Oh my god, I love it.
I tell you, man, implants was like, that was like the fucking... What was that fucking program that we had fucking to make the atomic bomb again? What was that shit called? What was the name of that fucking program to make the atomic bomb?
Shit, now I can't remember.
Yeah,
either.
I can't remember. I'm getting drunk.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Jane Russell's boobs actually made The Outlaw a really big hit. Apparently, one of Howard Hughes' more famous quotes about Jane Russell was, "There are 2 good reasons why men go to see her. Those are enough." So basically, it was all about boobs, and like I said, the shit with the Hayes office and like them trying to censor it and everything like that just made it more popular. So it ended up making a whole bunch of money. Now that was actually the last film that he was kind of really majorly involved in.
The Manhattan Project.
There you go. I couldn't think of it either.
Yeah.
Just like I couldn't think of the fucking word audit earlier.
Fake titties was the Japanese Manhattan Project. We were building atomic bombs and they were building implants to put in little 4'10" Japanese girls.
Well,
Yeah.
that's... You got to be good at something.
Give her
Everybody's
double
good
H's.
at something.
Yeah.
This is a big world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little things that could use improvement. Like I said.
1,600 cc's, both of them. Okay, yeah.
Doink, doink. Now inflate them like a bicycle pump. But yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, in 1948, he bought a controlling interest in RKO Pictures Corporation. Now, a few years later, he actually sold the shares, but then the year after that, in 1954, he actually just bought the whole company again. So, whatever. Now, he actually remained chairman of the board of RKO until 1957. And as we mentioned, pretty much the whole entire reason that he bought RKO was to do that shit with all the actresses.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like he spent a daunting amount of time, like, kind of going through, you know, looking at starlets, looking at women that were, like, won beauty pageants, that were, like, you know, coming to Hollywood, that were doing this, that, and the other. And he would just kind of go through and, like, look at their pictures and all this other stuff and be like, yeah, get that one. Yeah, get that one. Yeah, get that one. So, like, his crew would go and get all these women and bring them there. And like I said, he would have them, he had, like, a weird, like, finishing school thing, like, set up for them. Like, he would tell them how to dress, how to walk. He would, like, tell them how to do their hair. He would, like, put them through, like, all this fucking rigmarole, like a camp or whatever. And he would, like, give them cars. He would give them a place to live. And he kept promising that he was going to put them in movies. And he would have them sign a contract. And they weren't allowed to, like, go to any other studios because they had the whole studio thing. Like, you had a contract. You weren't allowed to work for any other studios when you were at contract with one studio.
They weren't allowed to date either.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to basically do anything. They were almost like prisoners.
They'd stay home.
Like in gilded cages. Like if they went anywhere, he'd have them followed to make sure they weren't up to anything. Yeah. And it's like he didn't, like every now and then he would drop by and have sex with them. And it's weird because they were talking to, on this one documentary that was kind of all about his love life or whatever, they were talking to, what's his name? Robert Wagner, the one that, with Natalie Wood, they were talking to him. And he knew him, and he said we knew where he was keeping all these starlets, so we used to, like, try to, like, come over when we knew Howard wasn't going to be there. They would, like, go around and do all the rounds, like, and try to climb. And he said he almost got caught one time, like, he had to fucking climb out the window and shit, and then he tripped over a sprinkler head and fucked up his shoes and everything. And then Howard was, like, chasing him. Because, like I said, he had, like, this whole entire harem, but they weren't allowed to do anything. Yeah. He had to have, like, control over them, like, at all times.
I think he meant to put them in movies, but movies never appeared. And I also think he'd forget about them.
Well, yeah, because there was always a new one.
Yeah, and the Empire ran automatically. So he'd have one of them hooked up, but new ones would show up, and he'd forget about the ones that from the year before. Forget all about them.
Yeah, and I mean, even when he was still making movies, like when he kind of took over, like the the lion's share of RKO. Before he bought it, RKO was making 30 movies a year. Like, after he bought it, they made maybe 6.
Yes, there weren't any movies.
So he wasn't really making a lot of movies. I feel like, one, he had, like, a whole bunch of other interests. Yeah. He seemed very scattered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he seemed like he was always looking for the next thing. And, you know, when he was, like, in the midst of working on something like a movie that was going to take a long time, he was just, like, real exacting and everything. But then it just seemed like, when he was looking for a new thing, he was just looking all over the place, and he wasn't really, like, concentrating on any one thing.
It was funny, you know, he had a whole empire, but a lot of the shit was just poorly managed.
Yeah,
but it still would make all kinds of money. It was weird.
Well,
and then certain businesses would fold, but he didn't care. He'd buy something else.
I mean, because like money. I said, his dad's, oil drilling bit company, essentially, made so much money that it must have just seemed like he just had endless money.
Yeah, but that eventually went away.
It did. It went down after a while. Like, he actually didn't... He sold it in the 70s, like the early 70s, and it was worth like $5 billion or something like that. But there was a time during the recession where it was... He wasn't broke, but he was getting there because he just kept spending and spending and spending because that's what he'd done his whole entire life. And, you know... really none of his inner circle had the balls to tell him, hey, the business isn't doing so well because it's the Depression and all this other stuff, and maybe you should kind of stop doing that because you don't have you don't have infinite money. But nobody really told him, but it kind of like all worked out.
It survived though.
It did, yeah.
They would, in that book that I read, they talked about all the little managerial fucking schemes that they would do. They could, if companies weren't making money, they'd liquidate them and then take that and invest that into something else. They had ways of fucking keeping everything afloat. And it's funny because in general, they'd make money. Howard would fucking spend it all, put them into debt. They'd fucking make rearrangements. And then just by luck and by just some kind of weird fate, they'd end up making more profit then before the loss, a lot of it was dumb luck. Dumb luck and good management
I definitely
decisions.
got that definitely did come across, like when I was reading about it.
There wasn't
like,
any plan to most of it. It was just,
no.
He just happened to always be in the right place and in the right time.
Yeah, he didn't really seem like a really shrewd businessman. He just seemed like somebody that grew up with a whole bunch of money, and he wasn't the most emotionally mature person, because I guess he'd been real sheltered like as a kid, and he really never seemed to grow out of that. So he basically had all the money. He could do whatever he wanted. He was really good looking. He was really charming. He had women throwing themselves at him, and he knew that he could just indulge his passions. And like you said, he would be able to get away with anything because he had money and he was charming. So he wasn't really worried about anything.
As the empire grew, it kind of spread out, kind of beyond his control. And it went into fucking businesses that he didn't even really know existed.
Yeah.
And the shit he did know about sometimes would go out of business. But the new shit in the company that he didn't even know about, that was thriving. So he would just start shifting everything to what was making money.
Yeah.
If you cast a wide enough net, there's going to be fish there. Yeah. That's kind of what was going on.
And like I said, he had such a massive like entourage and people working for him.
And they were good people working for him.
They were probably making a lot of the decisions as well. You know what I mean? Because he was notoriously kind of hard to work for.
And that's kind of a gross generalization. I mean, a lot of that stuff was happening much later. We're talking about in the 60s.
Yeah.
Where he couldn't help but to make money because the empire was just so big.
Yeah, I mean, once you get a certain amount of money, it's almost like you can't lose it.
And that's eventually where he ended up.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was. So it's like it didn't really matter what he did because
eventually.
Yeah. So I wanted to tell this story too about because, like I said, he dated pretty much anybody you can think of. Betty Davis, like fucking Ava Gardner. One story that I read about Ava Gardner, I didn't see this mentioned in like the documentary that I watched, but I did read it in one of the biographies that I read, was that he was super, super into Ava Gardner. She was kind of ambivalent about him. She was like, yeah, whatever, I could take him or leave him, which really seemed to like get his gears running, man. It's like he really liked, real young women, like young ingenues, because he could a lot of his friends and stuff said that because they would kind of buy his bullshit. Because like I said, one thing that he would do, and he did this with his 15-year-old girlfriend as well, is that, this is back in like the 1920s, 1930s when, everybody was having sex, but you weren't really supposed to, you're supposed to be married first and all this other kind of crap.
Yeah.
Because all the morality clause. And that wasn't really going on, but so you still had to like maintain some like decorum and stuff in public. So something that he would do
Hold on, one second. Before you go any further. A lot of people don't know this. The 20s and the 30s was a sexual revolution. Here, 20s in the United States, I think 30s, maybe 20s and 30s in Europe, but it was not a prudish time, the 20s and the 30s. It pretended to be, but it wasn't. Anyway, that's all I want to say. A lot of people don't know that.
Well, yeah,
they think the 60s was the sexual revolution.
That's what I just said. I mean, I just said that it wasn't like that, but the perception was you were supposed to make it look like it was.
Yeah.
So one thing that he would do was he would take like all these starlets and stuff, and they talked to a couple of them that had dated him like on this documentary. And he'd take them up to like, make out points and like all this other kind of shit. And he would tell them, like this one woman said, she was maybe like 17 or 18 years old. She's going out with Howard Hughes. And he takes her out in this car, like to this make out point or whatever.
Another drink.
And and he says to her, he's basically like, she's like, I should wait till I get married and blah, 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 like to have sex. And he says, well, don't you think that only God can marry people? And she's like, yeah, that sounds legit or whatever. And he's like, okay, well, God says we're married now. So he tries to take her to a motel. But to her credit, she was just like, no, nice try. Let's not do that. But so that was something that he would do a lot of the times. He would, particularly if they were really young and if they were kind of naive or whatever, he would, pretty much tell them like, profess his undying love for them. He's going to marry them. He would buy them cars. He would buy them thousands of dollars worth of jewelry and clothing. And he would just buy them a house. He would just buy them all this stuff. And he would say, I'm going to marry you. He would like ask them to marry. He would give them an engagement ring, all this other kind of shit. It was basically just to get in their pants, because once that happened, he would like take off and find the next one. Or like I said, it wasn't even find the next one, because he usually had 3, 4, 5, 6 going at the same time. And a lot of them didn't know about one another. So he was telling all of these girls the same shit. But the weird thing about it, many of the biographies that I've read said that he loved women, he loved being around these women, but the women that he seemed to love the most, the women that he seemed, to have the most enduring relationships with him were women who didn't want him, or didn't fall for his bullshit, or wouldn't let him get away with shit. Like, one of his dearest friends was Katharine Hepburn. Now, her and him dated for a very long time, and he actually wanted to marry her. She turned him down, but they were friends until he really like kind of went mentally off the deep end in the end, and he kind of cut everyone off. But he really seemed to relate to her, because I mean, Katharine Hepburn, especially for the time, was seen as very eccentric. I mean, she wore pants at a time when women did not wear pants, and my grandmother used to say that all the time. She's like, women did not wear pants back then. They did not. And she was like very independent. She didn't really want children. She didn't seem particularly maternal. She was very intelligent. And so she, she came across as very much unlike the type of woman that Howard Hughes would normally go after. But he was all about it. I mean, like I said, they were friends for decades and decades and decades. Even after they stopped dating, they were still friends, and they wrote many love letters, like back and forth and stuff. But he really seemed to be the most into women who he couldn't pull the wool over their eyes.
I think she also said that he was crazy as shit too.
She probably did say that.
He's crazy as shit. You know what I mean? It's like
I love Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah, he was crazy as shit.
I loved her. She was fucking awesome. Yeah. But he really did seem to be. So this is a story that, and I don't know if this is true, but I read this in the biography that I read earlier in the week. Now, apparently he was super into Ava Gardner, which a lot of people were, because she was like literally one of the most beautiful women ever. Like, and a lot of people said that. So now he was after her. She was, like I said, she was kind of ambivalent. She's like, whatever, we can go out. She wasn't like, fawning over him or anything. But they did eventually kind of start going out. Now, the relationship was super volatile. Now, she was also hooked up with Frank Sinatra at the time. I think they were married for a time. That was also a very volatile relationship. She seemed like they were both very volatile people. So, evidently, one night, Ava Gardner and Howard Hughes got into a fight. I don't know what it was about. And Howard Hughes, even though he never had like a reputation or anything like that about being violent toward women or anything like that, but apparently they got in such a bad fight that he punched Ava Gardner in the face so hard that it dislocated her jaw. At which point, Ava Gardner allegedly picked up an onyx ashtray, like a big old heavy ashtray, and fucking bashed his skull in with it. So much that she said there was blood all over the apartment. It was all over the curtains. It was all over her. Everything like that. She thought that she'd killed him. She didn't just hit him once. She kept on hitting him because she was fucking mad. Now, then after that, so she thought he was dead. She calls Louis B. Mayer, head of MGM at the time. It was MGM, right? Yeah, the Metro Goldwyn Mayer. So she calls him, because he didn't call the cops in Hollywood. She called, like, the studio head. Yeah. So she calls him. Louis B. Mayer comes there, or sends a crew there to clean everything up. Howard's not dead. They take him to the hospital. Ava Gardner comes to visit him in the hospital, and Howard asks her to marry him.
Some crazy shit.
After she bashed
Hepburn was right. He's crazy as fuck.
She said no.
Yeah.
But he just like for some reason that like seemed to obsess him, like women that didn't want him. Like he would like follow them around like for a really long time.
He used to get in his way.
I guess. Yeah, and I think he was intrigued by women that wouldn't let him have that. You know what I mean? It's like he liked it. Like he liked
to put up with his shit.
Yeah, he liked to be able to control women. Like that seemed to be like his main thing. Especially when he got a little bit older, he started like going after like younger and younger ones because, like I said, they would fall for his lines. But it seemed like his most enduring friendships or his most deeply felt love was toward women that wouldn't put up with his crap.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very fascinating.
It makes sense. Well, because he liked hard to get.
Yeah, he definitely did. Like, he would become obsessed if people said no to him. So, yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about his aviation achievements. Because there are a lot of those, too. Even though, like, you know, the dating the starlet stuff is a lot more fun. But, you know. So, at the same time that he was working on movies, starting in the 1930s, he founded the Hughes Aircraft Company in Culver, California. Now, one thing that he wanted to do, he wanted to be, like I said, the best at everything. And he was obsessed with aviation. He was obsessed with flying. So he wanted to break the land speed record for flying, right? So, September 12th, 1935...
Land speed record or the airspeed record?
The airspeed record, yeah. Although they usually have land plane speed record is what they usually list it as. I don't know why it's called that. But yeah, so 1935, he has designed an airplane in order to do just that. And he succeeded. He broke the record 352.46 miles per hour. Which for everyone else that's not in the United States... 567.23 kilometers per hour.
Yeah. Now, here's something that's pretty interesting about Hughes. During World War II, Howard Hughes was convinced when he saw the Japanese Zero, which is a Japanese fighter plane, he was convinced that somebody had stolen the plane, the plans to a race plane that Hughes was making. I forgot what it was called, but it was a Howard Hughes race plane. And it does look a lot like a Japanese Zero. He was convinced that somehow the Japanese had gotten hold of his plans. And
not impossible.
The Japanese Zero does look a lot like that race plane he was getting ready to build. I think he did build it, a small hand prototype. But yeah, somebody in the audience might know the name of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was just a number. It's like a Hughes. It was a race plane. Because a Japanese Zero didn't look like a warplane for the day. It didn't have any armor on it. It looked like a race plane with some fucking machine guns stuffed in it. That was about it. Yeah.
But yeah, so he breaks that record, and then in 1937, using the same airplane, he actually lowered the transcontinental flight time record 7 hours and 28 minutes. So during that journey, he averaged 332 miles per hour. He also circumnavigated the Earth in a Lockheed 14 in 91 hours and 14 minutes, which was also a world record.
Fourth drawer down said it was the H1. I think you're right. I think it was called the H1. He had another one that looked kind of like a Lightning. It was a dual fuselage airplane with a center nacelle that you sat in. The props had counter-rotating props in it. He wrecked that one somewhere over there in fucking Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was going to be a real fast airplane. Counter-rotating props would have helped. Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, so also in 1939, he bought 78% of stock in Trans World Airlines, better known as TWA. Now, when World War II came along, Howard Hughes decides he's going to turn toward developing military aircraft. So he got a couple of government contracts to build planes for the war effort. Now, one of these was the Hughes XF-11, and the other was the H-4 Hercules, better known nowadays as the Spruce Goose, which we'll get into why it's called that later on. Now, he got into actually a lot of trouble over these government contracts because he did use some of his own money, like developing the aircrafts, but he also got like several $1 million from the government. And as it turned out, he didn't actually finish the planes that he was supposed to finish until 2 years after the war was over. Yeah. So nobody needed him.
He got forgiven for all that, though.
It's weird because he didn't get in trouble. I saw like some archival footage of him at like the hearings like about this shit. Yeah. And it's, even though he was technically in the wrong, he ended up coming out smelling like roses, where like the senator that was kind of like accusing him ended up like kind of losing his career afterward.
Well,
just because he was indignant.
I think he was trying to deliver the planes. I think he was trying to deliver the best planes he possibly could. But because Howard was so OCD, every little fucking thing had to be perfect on the goddamn plane, and that's not the way World War II was.
You can't. Yeah, you just
World War
can't.
II is it's mass production. You get that bitch on the battlefield as fast as you can, and Hughes wasn't that kind of guy. He couldn't do that. So, but he was trying.
He just had a real issue because it was the same thing with his movies. It's like that's why a lot of his movies took so fucking long, because
every little aspect had to be fucking perfect, and that's just not the way technology moves ahead.
I mean, he fought like
not in those days.
During his movie production career. It's like he started out as a movie producer, like I said, which is just like the money guy, and it would be a different director, and he would be up the director's ass so much that directors would just quit because they were always like fighting. They're like, look, just do it your goddamn self if you're just going to be like up my ass about every single little detail.
Here you have Hughes trying to perfect propeller-driven planes. All right? In an era, the last few years of that damn war, the Germans were already dealing with jets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was no time to perfect propeller-driven planes. All right? that time had passed, you know? If you wanted to perfect something, perfect the fucking jet at that point. But you know, that's just not the way Hughes was.
Yeah.
Hughes was fucking a micromanager. But I did think he was trying to get the planes out on time. He just didn't want to. He didn't want to deliver something. Well, he said so in that Senate hearing. I heard it, the recordings of it. He said he couldn't live with himself if he handed an inferior product over to fucking an American airman, and then he died because of oversights during the development. That's not the way that World War II was fought, though.
Yeah.
World War II
Everything just had to be good enough.
It's good enough, and lots of it, and fucking push it out as fast as you can. It was all disposable min and material, really. That's the way it was.
Well, I mean, that's the way they thought of it.
Yeah.
So it's like the fact, like, I can appreciate being a perfectionist, but in that situation, when the government has given you millions and millions of dollars, hey, we need X amount of planes by this date, you can't sit there and obsess over every single detail. Yeah. Meanwhile, you know, they're like, hey, you know, we gave you all this money, where's our stuff?
With a fraction of that amount of money, and a fraction of those men, and a fraction of that of material, just in a mere fucking 9 months, the Germans were able to make a wooden jet.
Yeah.
The Volksjager. Okay? A wooden jet.
Yeah.
That was damn near looked like something out of damn 1960s technology. So, just his thinking wasn't right for wartime. He'd be a good fucking guy to have, like on a NASA project, where you got one shot to get to Mars, and that shit's got to be fucking
and everything has to be completely right.
He's good for that, but not for war. Not for war production.
Yeah.
Not in those days. Yeah,
so he didn't even end up flying at the XF-11, which was supposed to be a reconnaissance plane.
Yeah, that was that
he
one.
He flew the prototype in 1946, which was a year after World War II ended.
Yeah.
And the first time that he flew it, it crashed.
Yeah, that's the one I was telling you about.
That was the one, it almost killed him.
Yeah, it had counter-rotating props. And that was a badass plane. It looked like a Lightning. You know, the two fuselages, you know, in the center nacelle. It looked like that. But like I said, you're in the age of the jet already.
Yeah.
That
was already on its way out.
Yeah, propellers were fucking...
It's just kind of like what he ran into with, like, the Hells Angels movie, where it's just like he made half the movie, and then silent movies were on their way out, and he's like, oh, well, shit, now we have to stop and, like, redo the whole fucking thing. That turned out successful, luckily, even though it took 3 years to make. But yeah, so he flies the XF-11. He gets in, like, what? Hold on.
Somebody's saying, was it Alex? Yes, the Volksjager was a wooden jet made out of fucking plywood, glued together with a damn jet engine. The jet engine on the fucking roof of it is called, we called it the Hunchback. But look at the Volksjager. I think it was the ME-163, I think was the name of it. The People's Fighter. It was a cheap, basically almost near disposable plywood jet. And it flew. And it was a pretty good flyer. But by the time it was ready, I mean, they were putting Hitler Youth in there, 14-year-old boys, trying to get them to fly it. Yeah, it's true. They sent out one fucking flight wing. They never heard from it. And it was mostly 14 and 15-year-old boys. They don't know what happened to that wing.
Yikes.
They send that out after the fucking American Air Force. Nobody knows what happened with them. They didn't make it. They didn't make it back.
Yeah.
I don't even think they made it to the bomber streams, if you ask me.
Well, they probably just crashed in the ocean and got eaten by sharks.
Well, there wasn't an ocean there. That's landlocked. But they fucking... The Volkswagen was very interesting. Fucking German aviation was a thing of desperation, but they were no money and very good brains and very good thinking. They were pulling shit out of the ass, literally, trying to make a damn jet fighters out of fucking plywood just in the few final months of the war. That's fucking willpower. They were smart, but just couldn't do it. You know, that jet required an experienced jet pilot. Not an experienced airplane pilot, an experienced jet pilot to get that shit done. And they were putting boys in there that probably could barely handle a glider. So, no, it wasn't gonna happen. That thing was acrobatic as fuck and very, very touchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he flies the XF-11 and it is a very, very bad accident, which almost kills him. He has this thing where, because like I said, he was in several, I believe it was at least 4 plane crashes, like in his life that he survived, even though he was horribly injured in many of them. This one was a really bad one and almost killed him. One thing that he would do is that he would be all fucked up in these fucking plane crashes, right? Like in one plane crash, like it busted his skull, like it threw his fucking heart to the other side of his chest, like it punctured his lung, like all this other kind of shit. But he would, people would obviously like have to get him out of the plane, but he would tell his crew later, tell them that I walked out of the plane like on his own. He wanted it to look like he had crawled out of the wreckage like himself, even if that wasn't true. Like he was very, very concerned about optics, like well, I guess like what he looked like. So he would always tell them I crawled out of the plane on my own, even if he didn't, because like I said, this wreck in particular was a really bad one. So the other plane, the H-4 Hercules, better known as the Spruce Goose. Now the reason it's called the Spruce Goose, that was he hated that name, by the way. That was kind of an insulting name given to, because it was partially, it wasn't completely made of wood, but it was partially made of wood. Although it wasn't made of spruce, it was actually made of birch, I believe. I think it was just the frame. Like I think it had metal on the outside, did it not? But I think just the frame was made of wood. But it was this big giant plane. It was supposed to be essentially a flying boat.
Yeah.
It was supposed to hold like 750 people. So it's really a big giant fucking plane.
Huge seaplane.
Yeah, it's massive. And
the thinking was good though.
Yeah, it wasn't dumb. It wasn't like a dumb thing to do.
It was going to be something you used like on D-Day. You loaded a whole bunch of troops up on the thing, and instead of sending them to Germany and D-Day in boats, you did it in planes. Yeah. That would have worked. Yeah. It's just that's a lot of aircraft. It just didn't...
it had 8 engines. Yeah. It was like a fucking massive thing. And like I said, it was partially constructed. It wasn't entirely of wood, but it was partially of wood. And some people said it was too heavy to fly because it wasn't done till 1947. And the fact that it wasn't done till 1947, that was the same year that that Howard Hughes got brought before a Senate committee, because he was talking about war profiteering. It's like, look, we gave you all this money and you didn't produce anything, like, and now the war's over. So, like, there was this big back and forth between him and Senator Owen Brewster, even though Hughes actually came out of the victor of all that. And just to prove that it would fly, because a lot of people said that it wouldn't, in 1947, he flew the Spruce Goose 1 mile. Yeah. Like about 70 feet above the water, and then landed it, and it never flew again.
Some more modern analysis of that thing in terms of power to weight, and you know what I mean. Its lift capabilities. This was probably 10, 15 years ago now. They did an analysis, and it turned out that thing would have flown very well. Yeah. Yeah. They said it wouldn't fly. But no, computer analysis and everything. Well, I think
people
said it would have flown very well.
Right, because no one had seen it fly, and it was so big, and it was just like it seemed like this big debacle because it had taken so long to make, and it's like it was just this big fucking thing, and
it was only big for the time. Yeah, it was smaller than a 747.
Yeah, I mean nowadays it doesn't seem big now because like we have fucking big giant planes.
And yeah, it was wood, but plywood and stuff is it's similar strength to aluminum. And I saw a newer analysis of it, and they said it would have flown very well. Yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't a hoax. It was, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Hughes did a good job on it.
Yeah, I mean, it did fly. Like I said, they weren't concerned about whether it flew or not. They were just concerned that they had given him all this money to do it, and he didn't come up with it in time.
It was that typical Hughes fucking overthinking things and fucking... He kept his ass in a knot constantly, worrying about fucking little things and trying to perfect little things that should have been perfected later in the field. You put it out in the field, and then you find a problem. Then you issue an upgrade kit. You get the shit out there working. That's how you do it. Like, but that's not. Hughes couldn't think that way.
Well, I get it. Like he did. He had mental issues.
Yeah, he had mental problems.
But I understand. The whole thing about perfectionism, and it's like you have this weird thing where everything has to be just right before you can let anybody else see it. Yeah. And I feel like
that was a problem for him.
Yeah, like in some time, like, if you're writing a novel or something like that might be fine, but making airplanes for the government that they kind of need, like right now, please and thank you, that's not gonna fly so much.
And a lot of the shit he was working on were such minor details, you know what I mean? The airplane could have been in production years ago. Yeah.
Well, that's why they were mad. Yeah. I mean, that's why they brought him in front of the committee.
And he could have been made more money, but it wasn't profiteering. It was OCD.
Yeah, he wasn't doing it on purpose, to make extra money out of the government for doing this. And I'm gonna fuck him over.
He would have made more money had he put it out and put it into production. Yeah, they would have bought it.
Like I said, I think that in some ways he's lucky that he was already rich because his money just kind of made itself, and he didn't really have. So it didn't matter, if he made dumb decisions or if he did crazy shit, because the money just was happening without his input almost. Yeah. You know what I mean? So the Spruce Goose did fly. Louis asked if you ever saw the Spruce Goose when it was at Long Beach.
No, it was in a damn dome. It was in a dome right next to fucking Queen Mary. So I never saw it. I saw the Queen Mary though. Yeah. And I saw the dome that it was in. You don't know what he's talking about, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know what he's talking about.
Spruce Goose was right next to it, covered in a damn dome.
Yeah, I know. I remember seeing it, I saw it on, I didn't see it in person, obviously, but I saw it, on the news or something.
I remember my dad talking about it. We drive by it. That's that damn Spruce Goose. This is my dad in his 30s. He didn't sound like that.
He didn't sound like the turkey neck voice.
That's that damn Spruce Goose. It flies. It might fly. Howard Hughes. He's crazy. Crazy fucker.
Poor Howard Hughes. That's all he's remembered for now.
Yeah, it flew.
How crazy you were.
Yeah, it flew. That's how my dad's talk. Yeah, it flew. It flew.
It did. It flew for a mile. Yeah. He flew it for a mile just to show that it would.
Got that damn Spruce Goose.
Yeah. Even though, like I said, it was made of birchwood, not spruce. But whatever.
That's what everybody called it.
Spruce Goose just sounds better. Yeah, it made him so mad. Yeah. He did not like that nickname at all.
It was a term of endearment, though. They weren't talking bad about it.
I know.
Everybody liked it. It was a plane. It flew. It flew.
Your dad.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. It was a big plane.
Yeah. So, all right. So, all this time now, he seemed to have been able to keep his shit together throughout the 1940s. Even though people in his inner circle, people that work for him and stuff, they said they had started to notice little things about how he might not have been completely mentally there. You know what I'm saying? But nothing super alarming, not yet. But in 1950, it seems that he decided that he was going to just go into complete seclusion and see as few people as possible. Now, during this time, he also established the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, which, as far as I know, is still around.
Yeah, nowadays. It's always made money, evidently, somehow.
They will send. I don't know if they'll still do this, but a few years ago, I got a bunch of free DVDs, documentaries and stuff, about genetics and biology and stuff like that. Apparently, they'll just send you DVDs for free if you want to learn stuff. Wow. I don't know if they'll still do it now, but I got a bunch of stuff from there. I don't know how I came across it, but I was just ooh, a bunch of documentaries about genetics and stuff, gimme. And I was I still have them someplace. But yeah, so he established that. using profits from the Hughes Aircraft Company, he wanted to explore what he called the genesis of life itself. So it was kind of like a medical research, biological research type of institute. Like I said, it's still around nowadays. So that was like his, philanthropic type of thing that he was doing.
How long have you been streaming?
What? Almost 2 hours. Why?
Okay.
Why? Do you want to do a commercial? You
Do you need to do a commercial?
I don't. I'm all right.
Okay.
But you know what I mean.
Doesn't matter to me. I mean,
just keep on going.
Normally we do like a fucking halfway point, but I don't know.
I don't even know what the halfway point is because I don't know how long it's going to take.
Is this going to be a 4-hour show?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe not.
All right.
We've covered a lot of stuff already, like more than I thought we would.
Okay. No, but I don't ask for breaks. I'll just get up and go. When I gotta go, I'll just fucking go, man.
Well, yeah, but if you tell me, because I have like a very cute Pookie video, I have like a couple of commercials.
Okay, yeah, play the commercials then.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because I'll go to the restroom.
So you can go to the restroom. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna play some commercials and a Pookie video.
You're 2 hours into it.
Okay. I said just tell me.
You making me run the show, making me engineer this shit.
No, I just wanted to be okay with you.
Pookie's in the top apartment right here.
She's still sleeping?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, she's been sleeping this whole show. I can't believe it. All right, so we're going to play a couple commercials and a Pookie video, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Join us September 25th, 26th, and 27th for a 3-day special streaming event, Strange Realities, to push the limits of your reality. Featuring authors, academics, researchers, occultists, experiencers, podcasters, and practitioners. All presenting fresh cutting-edge material and research. Streaming live. Featuring presentations by
Brent Rains, editor of Alternate Perceptions magazine. Aaron Goulias, host of the Saucer Life podcast. David Metcalf, writer and researcher. Alan Greenfield, author of Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts. Stephanie Quick, writer and blogger. Red Pill Junkie, 14, researcher and explorer. Tim Banal, host of Banal of America. Guy Malone, iconoclast and troublemaker. Timothy Ritter, host of Strange Familiars. Kiki Dombrowski, author and practitioner. Greg Bishop, author of Project Beta. Ginny Ashford, host of 13 O'Clock. Recluse, host of The Farm. Jack Montgomery, Folk Magic. Joshua Cutchin, author of Thieves in the Night. Reverend Michael Carter, Alien Contact Experiencer. Dr. Future, host of Future Quake. Tony Kale, author of Memphis Hoodoo. Rin Collier, occultist. Soraya Askath, host of Where Did the Road Go? And John Tinney, Ghost Stalkers and Hell.
all 3 days, only $20. Tickets and info available at strangerealitiesconference.com. Brought to you by the Conspiranormal Podcast. Conspiranormal.com. Strange Realities.
You love true crime. I love true crime. And I've spent the last 3 years compiling a series of the most intriguing unsolved murders of the 20th century. It's called The Faceless Villain, and Volume 3 is available now. Featuring such fascinating cases as the Ketty murders, the Carrie Babies case, the Frog Boys, the Alcasar murders, and the Inokashira Park dismemberment incident, The Faceless Villain Volume 3 is an involving exploration of unsolved slayings spanning the years from 1980 to 1999. Pick up your copy in print or ebook formats on Amazon, or download the audiobook version from audible.com, and get ready for a chilling journey through modern crime history. So I came in, Tom's playing a video game, and look at Pookie.
It's ridiculous.
Hey, what's up, sweetie? She's like, don't touch my feet.
Yeah, she doesn't like when you touch her feet.
Hey, why are you so cute? She's like, why are you filming me? I'm just laying down like a Pookie does. Yeah. Yeah, you just...
I revived this whole game. I love Dune.
I know he plays that all the
You gotta
time.
play it on this shit. I'm gonna put it in a cabinet.
Yeah.
Make a Dune fucking cabinet.
What are you talking about? You like Dune too? You like when Daddy's on the floor?
Yeah, I get on the floor and then she wants to come play.
Yeah, she wants to come rub on the computer.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, well, it's not fun anymore because... I'm sorry, Poke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I know, I love you. That Pookie video makes you laugh. I recorded that yesterday. Because I just walked in the bedroom to tell you something and you were sitting there playing. She's just laying there going, hey, what's up?
Yeah, she chills out. And I'm working, she chills out.
She's very, very funny when you're working, playing Dune. Oh, that seeing the Strange Realities commercial in there, that reminded me. I have my time slot. I'm gonna be giving a presentation on the Strange Realities con on September 25th, which is a Friday, at 10:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that is my time slot. So if anybody wants to go buy tickets and see me talk about some true crime shit, then
Go ahead.
what is that?
I was going to show them the Volkswagen, the wooden jet.
Oh,
Hold on.
let me see it. I can't see it.
Trying to get a better picture of it.
I can't see it.
Keep talking.
No, because then you'll just like interrupt me when you
It was
do
the
shit.
162 Volkswagen, also known as the Salamander.
The salamander. I thought you were
Yeah.
going to say something else.
The salamander.
The salad fingers.
All right.
There you go.
The Hunchback,
That's a good looking plane.
especially for the time.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to fly in something with that thing on it. I
They
don't.
put-
I don't like flying in planes anyway.
They put
just
the
in general.
the jet in that position out.
That's it. Okay.
They put the jet in that position to make the jet easily removable. Because they had to be rebuilt
Yeah,
regularly.
I gotcha.
You had to rebuild the fucking turbines
Yeah.
assembly regularly. So they wanted to fucking keep a bunch of them ready in the shop. And when your jet engine got to old, they could just swap them out and rebuild the old one. Because it could quick detach from the aircraft.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You can swap an engine in a few minutes.
That sounds legit.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like I said, Howard starts going into seclusion in 1950, and over the following 10 years, he pretty much wouldn't really talk to anybody. Every now and then he'd talk to somebody on the phone, but he basically like conducted all his business through his inner circle. Like he had like yellow legal pads. He would write all these like rules and notes and everything. Now, interestingly, like I said, I'm not sure how true this is because there's a whole bunch of different biographies of Howard Hughes out there, and there's a whole bunch of like legendary stories because when he would go off into seclusion, you know, sometimes some of that is like kind of like lost time. Like a lot of people didn't see him, or so nobody knows exactly what was going on around that time. But the biography that I read speculated that the reason that he might have suddenly sort of gone off into this germ-phobic OCD kind of hell of his own making, I guess, was because right around that time he was diagnosed with syphilis. Not like the bad syphilis that'll like make you crazy. So that it wasn't that. It wasn't syphilis making him crazy. It was second stage syphilis, which actually could be treated with penicillin at that point, but he had a weird thing where he didn't really want to take penicillin. He wanted to take like the older treatment for syphilis, which was some kind of weird silver thing that was like had all kinds of like terrible side effects. But he, for some reason, didn't trust penicillin, maybe because it was new. I don't even know.
I thought it was
what
a mercury.
No, it
treat
was
with
silver
silver?
something. It was silver something. I
Silver
can't remember
nitrate?
what it was. No, it wasn't that. That was what they used to make film stock out of. It was, I can't remember what the word was. But so the authors of this biography speculated that the fact that he got a syphilis a syphilis diagnosis around this time, even though he was treated, might have been like a catalyst that made him, because after that he got really obsessed with cleanliness and germs, and he didn't want anybody touching him, and he always had like a little bit of that, but now it went to like extremes. Like he would go into a room and be in there for like 4 months naked, like eating nothing. He would just like slip notes under the door. It's like he wouldn't let anybody in there. It's like if people had to come in there to like bring him things, they had to like cover their hands in Kleenex. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he had all these like fucking rules. It's like if he ate, because he always would eat like out of cans, like peaches and stuff. And he had all these rules. He's like, you have to take the can, you have to take the label off. You have to like scrub the can like all over. You have to like, then you have to scrub your hands. Then you have to put Kleenex and gloves and shit like that on your hands. And then you have to pour it in the thing in the bowl. And then the bowl has to be scrubbed. And he
Yeah.
had like these big long, like everything was like a contagion.
Yeah, later on, he was that way with Swanson TV dinners. He had to have a certain way that TV dinners were prepared, and eventually only TV dinners. And it's because he was convinced that TV dinners were not touched by human hands.
They probably weren't.
Yeah. And I think they might have slightly been irradiated.
Yeah.
Which might have made sense in the 50s. So he might have known. I remember him saying that.
But you know what's weird,
And
though?
I don't know if
is
that's
that,
true or not.
Is that he was actually more afraid of radiation than he was of germs. Because
he evidently knew about irradiation, though.
Yeah.
Because you can use radiation to destroy bacteria inside of a sealed container. Because I think he knew about it. Based on what I remember.
He had all that money, and he was just like eating like shitty food out of cans and TV dinners and stuff.
According to the book that I read, he thought TV dinners were the cat's ass. That they were not touched by human
pajamas. The
they were
bee's
not
knees.
they were
the
not
dog's
touched.
bollocks.
They were not touched by human hands. They were totally sterile.
Yeah,
they were safe to eat.
He was.
That was astronaut food as far as he was concerned. You know what I mean? That was the height of it. High technology shit.
I remember. I don't know why I just remembered this. I had a very vivid memory just now of being in elementary school, and in the early 80s, it was like the space shuttle was like a really big thing, right? Because like that was when, all the space shuttle shit was starting, and it was like, oh, it's the future, blah blah blah. So we actually, I don't remember what grade I was in, maybe 5th grade, I think. And we had like some actual astronauts or an astronaut came to our class like to give a talk, and he was talking about the space shuttle and everything. And then we actually he brought like packets of like the astronaut food. So we all got to eat some of that, and it was horrible.
They're telling me Sheer Terror is streaming a live show right now. I don't need to see that. I got his girlfriend. But yeah, somebody else was saying that he didn't like his meat touching the peas and yeah.
Yeah, he was real weird like that.
From what I remember, there was a lot of that kind of stuff. He didn't like any kinds of cross-contamination between food groups.
I've known some people like that. It's a weird OCD thing. Like they don't like their... Now, when I was a kid, it used to gross me out, like when, cafeteria food in regular like public schools is pretty gross to start with. But there used to be like all these boys, and they would get the trays of the food, and then they would just like mix all the shit together just to gross everyone out, and that like made me want.
Then they pour chocolate milk on it.
Yeah, and then that made me like want to fucking vomit. I had to like move to another table. Like really, really bothered me.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me as much nowadays, but it used to really bother me, and peas used to bother the shit out of me. Like I couldn't even smell them.
Our generation, we grew up during the time of fucking the TV dinner. Even though that was really something of my dad's generation, it was still around when we were kids. Mm-hmm. You used to be able to go in there and get like...
I ate many of them.
Yeah, you go in there and get like a Hungry Man dinner for like $1.50.
Yeah.
And eat like 2 of them.
Well, I never eat 2 of them.
I could eat 2 of them.
Well, of course, you're a dude.
I could eat 2 of them. There really wasn't that much in them.
Yeah, they're kind of small, actually.
It was that big, but it wasn't very tall.
Well, yeah, most of it was
all
tray.
Separated out. It was all tray. It wasn't much in it. You didn't get full off of it. You just kind of got a little bit satisfied. But, for the time and for what you spent, it was a good deal. Because for $1.50, that's only a little bit more than a McDonald's hamburger.
Yeah.
And you got a turkey dinner with the fucking cherry fucking pie and everything. Remember that shit?
Well, it was a cherry
pie.
It was neither thing. It was a simulation.
Yeah, it was like astronaut food.
It was a cherry pie adjacent product.
TV dinner. You ate that shit on a TV tray while you were watching dinner.
Yeah, while you were watching dinner.
Excuse me, while you were watching TV. You ate that shit. I'm drunk.
While you're watching Sanford and Son.
While you were watching Sanford and Son.
Or whatever.
He's calling him a big dummy.
Coming to join you, Elizabeth.
It was another time.
Do you know what I don't know if I'd want to eat one nowadays. It's not exactly a TV dinner, but it came in a tray, and it was like thin, perfectly round turkey slices, or turkey, like with bunny rabbit ears, as Eddie Izzard says. And it was like a bunch of those and gravy, and it just came in one big tray, and then you like stuck it in the oven for however long. It was already cooked. You just had to heat it up. And my grandma would make that, and then mashed potatoes on the side and maybe some cornbread. I was into that when I was a kid.
Somebody's
Like
talking
those
about-
fucking turkey, those round turkey slices with gravy on them.
I don't remember that. Somebody's talking about the damn hamburgers that they had at school with the soybean patty. This shit was like springy fucking meat.
I always brought lunch
flavored.
from home. I did not buy cafeteria food ever.
That shit was terrible.
I don't remember ever buying cafeteria food. In elementary school and junior high, every now and then, like if I had, some money, I'd buy like an ice cream sandwich or something. But I always brought food. I always brought a sandwich and, like a cup of yogurt or something. High school, we could leave for lunch.
Yeah.
So
I
I
didn't
usually
eat high school food.
So I either went to McDonald's or I didn't eat. Or I went to Eckerd's and got like a pack of crackers.
In middle school, I was in California, and it was a public school, and that's where they had the springy fucking burgers and shit, where they were people pouring fucking chocolate milk in the tray and shit.
That's so fucking
But then I went to
gross. That
military-
would probably still make me throw up.
Then I went to military academy. The fucking food there was fucking great.
Must have been nice.
It was family style. You sat at the fucking table, and they came in and they brought all the fucking bowls, big old bowls of spaghetti and meat sauce and shit.
Because
Fucking-
other countries know how to fucking eat. We just kind of like...
No, that was in Signal Hill, California.
Oh, okay.
And then when I went to Brazil, that was a private school, so I had Brazilian food.
Yeah.
And it's funny because all the little Japanese girls, they wouldn't eat that shit. They brought their little bento boxes and shit with all their little fucking sushis and shit.
Well, okay.
They would bring that and they'd eat that, and we'd laugh at them a little bit. They'd
Oh my god, just like everybody laughing at Molly Ringwald in the Breakfast Club because she brought
Exactly.
sushi to the
Exactly.
fucking...
Well, they would have some beautiful fucking Brazilian...
Rice, raw fish, and seaweed.
Yeah, exactly. They'd have some Brazilian...
You won't accept a guy's tongue
some-
in your mouth, but you'll eat that.
They'd have some fucking beautiful Brazilian food, feijoada or fucking chicken milanese or something like that, you know what I mean? And they'd turn their nose up at it and eat some fucking cold fish and shit. We'd be like, ugh. But you know what?
It's what you grow up with. It's
they
not
grow up
weird
with.
to them.
Well, they used to fucking... We were fucking around one time, and they were sharing it and letting us taste it, and I didn't think it was bad what they were eating. It was just the regular sushi that you would get at the fucking...
Sushi's pretty good.
like you get at the Chinese
Not a huge
buffet.
fan, but I'll eat it.
Not real flavorful, you know what I mean, compared to what Brazilians were eating, but, whatever. They were scared, though. They were scared of foreign food. They had to have it the Japanese way. And those girls were fucking funny because their parents would dress them like they dressed. So they all looked like Bobby Sockers from the fucking 50s and the 60s. That's what they dressed their kids like they dressed, all right?
Like
They wouldn't
were-
allow the
like
girls
they were in
to...
Greece or something.
They wouldn't allow them to wear makeup, use perfume, or shave their legs. So they had fucking hairy legs and fucking no makeup. And they're going to school, high school, around Brazilian bombshells from the fucking...
They just could not compete.
No way. You're talking about... This is the Brazilian upper class. They were just genetically selected for hotness. You cannot marry into that class unless you're hot by Brazilian standards, which means booty. Just booty. Booty and
for
beautiful
days.
fucking legs. Oh yeah. They are a lower body ethnic group. It's all just about from the waist down. Okay. They're kind of flat, and the dudes, they're big into soccer. They don't have any upper body strength. You know what I mean? They're all this fucking lower body fucking. They're in that era. They were about lower body strength. They weren't into that American football or fucking working out. You know what I mean? They were just into running around on a fucking soccer field.
Yeah.
They
You
call
have
it
to
the
have a lot
football
of
club.
endurance for that
Yeah, that's
sport,
where they
I
were.
will say.
But there's just, I felt sorry for them those poor girls.
Well, yeah, I mean, that kind
Imagine
of blows.
your parents not letting you fucking...
Not letting you, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was me, I would just take makeup with me in my bag and put
Yeah.
it on when I got there. in
There
the
were no
bathroom.
Japanese boys. They were all back in Japan because they mattered.
Yeah.
They,
So the girls, yeah, fuck off.
yeah.
Fucking
No, they have
girls.
to go back. They have to stay in Japan in an expensive school because their futures matter. So they need the best of education. But the girls will keep with us. We'll just send them to one of these little foreign schools where we have to work. You know.
Yeah, we'll send them off to some other country so we don't have to look at them.
Well, no, they were going to another country. Their dads were working in Brazil,
Yeah.
but the sons all stayed in Japan
Yeah.
because their education was too expensive to sacrifice on an international school.
Yeah.
They'd never make it in Japanese society. It was a weird fucking time. I don't know if it's that strict nowadays, but back then it was. But those girls, I don't know how I got on this subject.
I don't know either. I don't know
But
how
those
you get
girls
on
were
lots
like
of
middle
subjects.
schooler. Those girls, it was funny because
Sorry.
that particular school, the Japanese girls looked and acted like middle schoolers in a certain way. And the fucking Brazilian high school girls acted like porn stars.
So you can imagine, like, which girls the dudes were going to go
Of course,
after.
of course. Of course.
That's a no-brainer.
Porn stars. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, porn
Well-
stars? Yeah, I'm all about that.
Well, in Brazil, you could fucking go to a club at 14.
yeah.
So, you know.
Well,
I
I
mean,
feel like a
you were
lot
like
of
an
the,
adult at 14.
I feel like a lot of the world you can just kind of go out when you're...
Yeah.
As long as you look old enough to drink, it's
Then
like,
you can do
you're
it.
good.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Nicole Schumacher says, y'all are the reason I listen to podcasts now.
Oh, yeah? Cool.
Wow, that's quite a compliment. I don't even know, this show is just so cobbled together.
Yeah.
We just have like no organization, no nothing about anything. He
Alcohol.
doesn't even usually know what the topic is until he sits down to do the show. He knew this time because it was the poll and like he knew, and he was like, oh goody, because he knew about Howard Hughes. But yeah, so Howard Hughes, after all of that talk about Swanson TV dinner, that's how we started talking about it, because we talked about Swanson TV dinners, and then we got into school lunches, and then
it went to that shit.
We see how that happens. So so for the next 10 years, he gets seen very seldom. He's basically like saying he's doing the shit where he's like, hey, I'm gonna go into this like screening room to check out some movies, then he doesn't come out for 4 months. And then every now and then, like, somebody in his crew goes in there to check on him, and he's sitting in there naked watching movies, eating the candy bar and drinking milk and peeing in a jar. And his fucking fingernails are growing, like, curling like that. His hair's all long and shit like that. He's not bathing and all, so it's nice.
Like Mr. House from fucking New Vegas.
That's what I mean. It's like there have been so many fucking fictional
If you ever played
characters
that game,
based
it's
on-
awesome. You eventually find Mr. House, and he's in a fucking sleep chamber. In suspended animation. You can pull his
That's
ass
right
out.
there. I remember you doing that.
Yeah, I
that
found him.
mission.
And
That's
I fucking
right.
pulled his ass out of the fucking chamber and fucking killed him. He was the bad guy.
Get a haircut, hippie.
Yeah, when I pulled him out, he looked just like that photograph of fucking
Of Howard Hughes
before he
with,
died.
like, the
yeah,
long gray
yeah,
hair,
long,
like,
long
the
hair
beard
and
and
fucking
everything.
looked
Yeah,
like
he
a
looked
fucking,
he looked like a homeless man.
looked like a homeless bum. Yeah, it's exactly what he looked like.
Which, like I said, it's weird that he was so weird, but it's the same kind of thing because, like, we watch Hoarders because I love Hoarders. It's like disgusting but fascinating at the same time. And my grandfather was a hoarder, so I'm kind of like I know about that kind of shit. I feel like it's really interesting that hoarding and OCD are on the same spectrum, and particularly somebody like Howard Hughes, whose OCD manifested so much as a like germ phobia. You would think somebody like that would want to be like, he would want everything to be like spotlessly clean, but that did not extend to his own person, apparently. Like, he was totally fine. Yeah, he was totally fine with not cutting his hair, not cutting his nails, not bathing, sitting in a room for 4 months and peeing and pooping in jars or whatever it was he was doing. Yeah. He was totally fine with that because he didn't have germs. Everyone else did.
Yeah. Germs couldn't come from him.
You know what? This is a terrible story, but this is apparently true. Like, several people that knew Howard Hughes have confirmed this. Not only was he really like, afraid of contagion, that extended he really, really, really did not like black people.
Yeah.
He had a private screening room at MGM Studios, I believe, and he would go in there and watch movies until the day he found out that the cast of Porgy and Bess, which is, if anybody that knows anything about musicals, it's an all-black musical, had been going in there to watch the dailies, in which case he was like, I'm never going in there ever again, because he thought it was polluted.
Black people were in there, yeah.
Yeah, because they had touched everything and it could never be cleaned. So, isn't that nice? Yeah. But yeah, so he had issues.
But there's more to it. There's more to it than the OCD you're talking about. The other book that I read, he had a lot of stuff that also came from head injuries. Constantly repeating the same phrases over and over again. He'd just get caught and he just say,
that was one of the things that alerted his crew that something was the matter, because he would keep repeating the same sentence,
same phrases over
like
and over
30
and over
times, and they'd be like, dude, you just said that. And
then he had all these rituals he had to go through to get anything fucking done. More OCD.
He wouldn't touch doorknobs. He wouldn't, like I said, everybody had to, he had like, he probably should have bought like fucking stock in Kleenex. He might have, because he went through so much he wore Kleenex boxes on his feet. He had he had Kleenex like all over his hands. Everybody that worked for him had to put Kleenex and shit.
Yeah.
They had everything they handed him. They had to like put layers of Kleenex on their hands to like hand it to him or like touch him. Like if they handed him the phone or something.
He was fucking nuts.
Yeah. There was also the thing about this, maybe was before he went into his seclusion. He had a big thing for this particular brand of banana nut ice cream. Yeah. And he really, really loved it. And he would eat it all the time. But then the company that made it said that they discontinued the flavor. And he was really upset. So he went to the factory and they said, well, you know, we don't make it anymore. You'd have to buy at least 350 gallons of it, like for us to make it. And he's like, okay, well, I'll do that. So he pays for 350 gallons of banana nut ice cream. So he buys it, he gives it to the hotel where he's staying, and then he decides he's sick of banana nut ice cream and decides he wants French vanilla ice cream instead. So this hotel has 350 fucking gallons of banana nut ice cream in their freezers that they don't know what to do with, and they just started like giving it away to people because he ordered all of it because he wanted it.
Another
and
one
then he didn't want it anymore.
And I think it was, what was the girlfriend that gave him a hard time constantly? The fucking one that he probably really loved. What was her name?
Who, Katharine Hepburn?
Katharine Hepburn. I think it was Katharine Hepburn. Him and Katharine liked this special orange ice cream. Now, it wasn't orange sherbet. It was like a cream ice cream that had oranges in it.
They don't make a lot. They don't make that. They should. It's probably good.
And it was somewhere on the eastern fucking seaboard that made it. And he was living in California at the time. They started talking about it, and he sent an airplane from California to all the way, I think it was to near New York, somewhere around that time, to get some of that ice cream and come back. And they fucking were evidently doing like this marathon fucking mission, like a relay race, handing it off to other airplanes to get it in like 12 hours. So they actually kind of broke a record.
Yeah.
Yeah, some like really fast airplanes to fucking bring them this fucking ice cream. And that
I've never wanted ice cream that bad.
And it was only like 5 or 10 gallons. We're not talking about like a whole bunch of ice cream,
right.
like a small thing of ice cream, really. And the guy in the book said that ice cream, if they added it all up, was like $10,000 of money back then.
Right. Like I said, I've never wanted ice cream.
Probably like 100,000.
I don't think I've ever wanted anything that bad.
Yeah. So probably hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on that ice cream. But really, money didn't mean anything to him at all.
That's what I mean. I guess if you're rich and you can just have whatever you want, like that kind of shit, and you don't really... The thing about having that much money, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have anything. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and somebody like Howard Hughes in particular would get really wrapped up in these little bitty, insignificant kind of details. So that would just be like this big mission. We're going to get this particular flavor of ice cream.
Yeah.
And I have the money and you can just do it. And it's like, to the rest of us peons down here that like, you know, struggle to pay bills, it just seems really frivolous and annoying because you just get these dudes like, oh, I decided that I wanted this particular flavor of ice cream that only this one artisanal place like in Italy sells. So I'm just going to pay millions of dollars to have some fucker like fly it over here to me. You know what I mean? But I guess to them, it doesn't seem that weird because like, what the fuck else have they got to do?
No,
Nothing.
It wasn't Dreamsicle. It was orange ice cream. And I've never heard of it really or seen it. Like a cream, like a vanilla ice cream is what it was, that had oranges in it. And like, I don't know if it had oranges and like orange swirl in it. That's based on memory. It was more of a cream ice cream.
Yeah.
Flavored with orange. Sounds good, but I've never seen anything like it.
I gotta say that, like, I'm not super into, like, fruity ice creams. If I'm gonna eat ice cream, it's gonna be, like, coffee flavor with, like, chocolate chips or nuts in it. Or it's gonna be some crunchy, or it's gonna be, like, peppermint candy or something.
Women are all the same.
But, no, they're not.
They're all the same. They like that fucking same flavors of ice cream. They don't like any of that fruit ice cream.
My
And
grandmother
men
did.
like fruit ice cream.
I've known a lot of women that like fruit ice cream.
Yeah.
I personally don't. Okay. I don't like fruit and milk together usually.
All right.
So ice cream, like I said, I usually butter pecan or, you know, coffee or mint chocolate chip or, you know, peppermint stick or something like that. I like that kind of shit, or moose tracks or something. However, I will say that a couple of the Indian restaurants here in town do a mango ice cream. It's not
That's good.
sherbet.
Yeah.
It's ice cream,
Yeah.
and they make it like and it is delicious. I don't
Yeah.
even like mangoes,
It's good.
but that fucking shit is delicious.
Yeah.
And it's like bright orange. I don't know how they.
How we doing on time for the show?
2 hours and 23 minutes.
How much do we have left?
I don't know.
Okay.
I guess we'll find out. when
This
we
could be a
get there.
4-hour show.
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
Somebody earlier said that I'd obviously never smoked weed if I never wanted ice cream that bad. I've smoked weed a couple of times, but it's like mostly it didn't make me hungry. It just made me really paranoid. I didn't care for it. But yeah, I've never wanted ice cream that badly. So yeah. Anyway, so over the following decade, like I said, he's kind of like mostly kind of incognito and letting his inner circle kind of run shit. He didn't even show up. Like, he got accused of like antitrust, like monopoly type shit about his TWA shares, and he was supposed to like come and like in front of the hearing about that, and he didn't show up. So he actually lost control of the business, by default because he didn't show up. He actually ended up selling his shares for $500 million. So again, even when he doesn't do shit, he still makes money.
See, Alex is right. He says Moose Tracks is effeminate. That shit is effeminate. All that,
See,
all that chocolatey shit's effeminate, man.
No, I mean,
It's just, I'm saying.
well, I always
I'm
thought fruit ice cream was way more effeminate.
No, I don't think so.
Because
They're
fruity,
just
you're a fruit.
Chocolate is like chocolate. There's something effeminate about chocolate. I don't know what it is. It seems like women gravitate towards all that chocolatey stuff. Chocolatey stuff with nutty stuff and fucking and I like sherbet, really intense.
And when you eat
really
candy,
intense
you always
fruit
like
flavor.
fruity candy. Like he
Fruit
likes
candy.
gummy bears
Oh,
and
yeah.
like cherry sours.
Mike and Ike's. Fucking Jelly Bellies.
He went to Sam's the other day
Yeah.
and he brought back. This is what he brought back, you guys. We're
Good.
trying not to get fat.
She's making fun of me.
He brought back a big box of Nutty Buddy Little Debbie's.
Yeah.
Big box of Hostess coffee cakes. Those are good though.
Yeah.
I have those. They're small, so I have one for
They're
breakfast.
good for
every now and
coffee.
then.
Good with coffee.
Yeah, or for like a afternoon coffee break.
Yeah.
Also, you got another box of like another kind too. Did you get more oatmeal cream pies?
No.
Oh, you still had some of those
Yeah.
left. And he bought a big huge bag of Mike and Ike's.
Yeah, like 5 pounds of
and
Mike
a
and
big
Ike's.
huge bag of Jelly Bellies.
It wasn't a bag. It was a fucking jar.
Or a big jar of
Like
Jelly
a
Bellies.
5-pound jar.
Which
of
is
Jelly
good because
Bellies.
I don't like those, so you
Yeah.
can eat all of them and get fat.
Gourmet jelly beans.
If you're gonna go to Sam's and buy candy, buy fruit candy because I'm not gonna eat it. I don't like it.
See, I'd like Juji fruits, fucking gummy bears.
See, it's just to me it seems like a waste of calories.
Skittles. I'll
It's a
eat
waste
all
of
that
calories.
shit. Man.
The only fruity candies I like
Zots,
Lifesavers, although butter rum ones are better than
Jolly
the fruit
Ranchers.
ones. Jolly Ranchers are okay, and Starburst.
Like those too.
But if I'm going to pay for candy and I'm going to eat like 300, 400 calories worth of candy, because that's like a big calorie, thing for the day, I want it to be something like substantial.
I like that Scandinavian black licorice.
That
That fucking big old things of black licorice. It's almost like eating fucking jerky.
Like they're good. Like I don't
good.
hate them. They're good, but it's
Yeah.
like I would just rather if I'm gonna eat like candy, I would rather have something like a chocolate bar with nuts in it, or like a Ferrero Rocher, or something a little more with a little more heft. You know what I mean?
I think
Fruity
that-
candy seems just
there's
kind of
something
like
about-
insubstantial and like blah.
There's something about chocolate. A woman eats it and it releases some kind of hormones. It's something sexual. It's something.
It's not
It's
sexual.
something-
It's the feel good hormone.
It's something. It's something.
It's the feel good chemical.
It feels estrogenic to me when I eat it.
No, it does it to everybody. Like chocolate releases like the happiness chemical, like in your brain. It doesn't. It's not just women. It does it for everybody.
All right.
It makes you happy, like in the same way that sex makes you happy.
I'm getting sleepy.
Chocolate does that for everybody.
I'm getting sleepy.
Don't you fucking bow out. I mean, it's only
Okay.
2.5 hours.
All right, man, you're wearing me out with this fucking show. Okay.
I'm wearing you out,
All right.
dude. It's 7:23
I'm listening.
p.m.
I'm fine.
You know what I mean? It's like it's not
We're
even.
talking,
It's
man,
not
we're
even
talking.
late. It's not even late.
Okay, let's go. Let's change the subject. You're
Tammy
talking about
says,
me
my
too much."
husband actually has a junk food cupboard. He gains no weight. See, dudes are the
Yeah.
worst. I can't get away with, like I said, I have to curate my snacking. Because I'm one of those people that it's like, I've said this before on the show probably, I sniff a cupcake I gain 5 pounds. So it's like, if I'm going to have a snack, it better be something fucking good that I really want, because I can't just...
I lift and I take
I exercise too, but it's just like, you can't... I just gain weight really easily in a way that you don't. So I really have to think about, like, how badly do I want this snack right now? And if it's just going to be gummy bears or something, it's not worth it to me. It's not worth it.
I lift and I take a bunch of weird high performance shit, so it's hard. It's easy for me to keep it off. I'm constantly in build mode.
Well, dudes in general don't store fat the same way that women do.
Because of testosterone.
It's very frustrating because it's like they can... It's, when you get older, it evens out. But, I mean, I used to, like, when my brother was a kid, holy crap, that child would just eat and eat and eat and eat. And I didn't know where he was putting it, and he was, like, skinny.
Well, He's
fat now, but...
I started to get chubby, and that's why I started to lift. It started to fucking reverse a lot of that.
Well, like I said, when you get old, you can't...
Yeah, you have to keep your
But when dudes are young, it's like you can eat a lot. You can get away with eating a lot, and you won't gain it. Yeah,
it's hormones. But
women don't have that luxury.
But you can keep those hormones in balance through a bunch of different means. Either fucking naturally, or you can fucking get external assistance. You know what I mean?
Michael Schaefer asks this, says, Tom is an old man. Does he eat dinner at 4:30?
I eat whenever the fuck I want to eat.
We actually ate we ate before the show.
Yeah.
We ate at like 4 probably.
I made some fucking Chinese food.
It was good, like Chinese pork with broccoli and
Chinese pork,
onions and peppers and stuff.
Yeah. And it was all very high in protein.
That was kind of lunch/dinner, because we didn't really have, I mean, we had brunch. We had egg sandwiches at like 11. Like just eggs on like a pita. I'm
convinced that your diet is important. It should be heavy in protein. You got to keep it kind of low in carbohydrates. You got to have a lot of nutrients there. When you get older, you might want to take vitamins. All right. But then you also have to have fucking high output. You got to lift weights. Cardio isn't enough. Your body responds to that in a certain way. It keeps your hormones in a certain kind of balance. You got to be in fight or flight mode, which keeps you in like fucking build mode. That's why those dudes are taking shit like growth hormones. That keeps them in build mode. That way you're not sitting around getting fat and girlish. Because being girlish is the worst thing ever. Your hormones get out of whack. He tries to say, it's like, he's always like, everything about girls is bad. No, she's reading into it. Ice cream flavors are girly. Chocolate ice cream is girly. I'm just playing. But that'll happen. Girls suck. We're the worst. No. When a man gets overweight, he does not look like a girl. I'm just fucking with it. No, he looks like a fat dude. Like a fat old man. But I gotta fucking, I gotta put gravy on top of it. You know what I'm talking about? Mark says, when men get old, they look like Sean Connery. When women get old, they look like Sean Connery. Yeah. It's sad but true. It's hormones, and sad but true. We live in 2020. There are ways. There are hormone replacement therapies out there, and there's fucking ways of keeping yourself in shape. If you don't do it, you get out of shape and you die. You're gonna die anyway. But just depends on if you want to die good looking or you want to die old, ugly. It's on you. It's on you. It's the choice is yours. You're the one that ate a whole bowl of jelly beans last night. I can't eat a whole bowl of jelly beans though, man. Fucking. We'll see. I'm sore as shit. I'm not gonna eat any jelly beans. Because he's like, "Hey, want jelly beans?" I'm like, "No, I don't want jelly beans." It wasn't like I said. It wasn't a whole bowl of jelly beans. I had a bowl. It was only that much in the bottom of them. It was about like what would be in a pack of Skittles, a little bit more. Yeah. Like I said, if I'm gonna eat candy. Yeah. I want some good fucking candy. I don't just want some jelly beans. You know what I'm saying? What the fuck? What the fuck? I lost my connection. You did? Yeah. Oh, no. Gotta get back in there. Well, hopefully we didn't. We're still on, right? It looks like. I think so. All right. Yeah, so like I said, so Howard's been like in his fucking shit and he's not like communicating with anybody. So he loses his share of TWA. Now, at some point, he moves into the penthouse at the Desert Inn in Las Vegas, famously. Now, he's up there. Now, how old is he by this time? This was in
1967.
Okay, so he's in his 40s already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or 50s, actually.
50s,
He's probably in
right.
his 50s at this point. Because he was born in 1904.
Yeah.
So this is 1967. So him and his entourage, like his crew and stuff, they have like the penthouse at the Desert Inn in Vegas. And he's there for a couple months, and evidently the owners of the hotel were not super happy about it because they're like, look, people have reserved the penthouse, for various dates and stuff like you do. And so we would like you to leave, please, because you're really kind of hogging the whole penthouse floor that other people have reserved. And Howard Hughes got kind of shirty and did not want to leave, so he bought the whole hotel.
Yep.
Just so he wouldn't have to leave.
That's how you handle shit.
Because that's just how, if you have the money, I guess.
Yeah.
He's just like, everyone stop bitching at me here. Cha-ching. So he buys the whole hotel. Now, because he bought the Desert Inn, this kind of gave him the idea, hey, now I'm going to become like a real estate investor in Las Vegas. And he proceeds to buy a whole bunch of other hotels and casinos in Las Vegas and a bunch of land. So he bought, I think he ended up buying like 7 other hotels, like the Silver Slipper, like a whole bunch of other like kind of iconic ones. A lot of them are gone now. But yeah, so he owned like a large part of Las Vegas. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, it was probably this particular purchase that spurred other investors to come to Las Vegas and buy property and stuff, and kind of, they didn't drive the mafia out, but it kind of changed the public perception of Las Vegas as this kind of like mafia owned hellhole, to somewhere that like tourists could go, like families could go, like shit like that. So it made it more like attractive to investors and tourists because it wasn't seen as just like this mafia owned city anymore. So, there was also, okay, so like I said, there was all this like creepy shit going around this time. We've talked about like the fingernails and the pooping in jars or peeing in
Yeah,
jars.
no, he
whatever.
wasn't like that all the time.
No, it was weird because it was like
would come and
intermittent.
go.
Intermittent. And like sometimes he seemed to have like, for long periods he seemed to like not really be aware of it, but then suddenly somebody would say something to him about it and it would like kind of shake him out of it, and he would like go and get a haircut and buy a new suit and like come out in public and be like, see, I'm fine.
Yeah. Now let me describe this a little bit. In the book that I read, his right-hand man described the way it was. His head injuries and his problems would cause him to repeat himself over and over again.
Yeah.
And it would embarrass him.
Yeah.
So to save himself from the embarrassment, he would go hide out in that damn theater for months at a time.
Yeah, just watching movies, sitting there naked.
And during that time, somehow he would kind of overcome it. And it would sometimes he'd relapse into this.
Yeah.
And during that time where he was having to face that Senate hearing about the war profiteering,
Yeah.
he really glitched out over that. All right.
It was either that or there was another one later about TWA. That was another antitrust thing.
He was
later.
glitching the fuck out over over that one. And so he hid out for a long time. And then what was funny is like on the eve of that hearing, he reappears, a disheveled old motherfucker, a disheveled motherfucker, cleans himself up, puts on this fantastic shirt, and walks right into that fucking Senate hall and gives this fucking like badass defense. And they were amazed because just hours before that, he was just fucking insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did have moments of lucidity.
Yeah, and then he goes back, and he rode a high horse for a long time after that, like he had recovered. But whenever he was stressed out over something, he'd relapse.
Yeah.
Back into this fucking constant repetition and an OCD.
Yeah, it's like he would kind of get back into this pattern that it was
Right,
really hard
right.
for him to get out of.
And then at the last minute, he'd have to face some trial, like another fucking trial in public, and then he'd pull it out again and fucking have this tremendous fucking victory.
It seemed like if he had something to motivate him, whether it was like, a new conquest, like a new like woman that he was really interested in, or a new project, or like someone that was like fucking with him and he just like wanted to fight it, it seemed like he needed that motivation to kind of like come out of it and overcome his mental illness for a short time. But it was only for a short time. Like it was it would eventually get the better of him again, which was, like I said, kind of sad because it seems like he didn't really have a lot of choice. I think he inherited that propensity for OCD from his mom, because I think she had it as well. And then, the fact of his high risk lifestyle, let's call it that, with, getting syphilis from all the promiscuity and also like all the head injuries from the crashes, it's like that really didn't, and the drug abuse as it went on.
The book I read did not mention anything about the syphilis, although that's a possibility. They had that back then.
Well, yeah, because one of the women was it Lana Turner? She had syphilis as well, although I think that was later. So she might have got it from him, because I think that was like before. But the biography I read came out in 2014, so it's fairly recent.
What was funny is that it was treatable, it was curable in his day, but he didn't.
It was.
If he had it, it means he wasn't going for the cure.
Like I said, he distrusted penicillin, but he did do the older
dumbass
cure for it, which gave him a lot of other side effects.
Yeah,
and like I said, because he was in so many plane crashes and had so many problems because so many head injuries, like punctured lung, all that other kind of stuff. So he was on all kind of painkillers, most of which were obtained illegally. And a lot of his doctors, one in particular, got in trouble later on because they found out that he was actually illegally obtaining a lot of those drugs for him, because he wasn't really supposed to have them.
A lot of doctors are glorified drug dealers.
That's his definitely was. Yeah. I mean, you can see why he did it, because I guess he could see that Howard was in terrible pain all the time because of all his injuries, but he still needed to get out and do shit. So he was just trying to keep him going, I guess.
Yeah.
So he just like I said, so he was a drug addict, really. I mean, he was on codeine and he was on various other things, and he could take so much of it that, it was just he could take an amount that would kill a normal person, just because he had worked up to
resistance to it
so much. Yes, because he just had to keep taking more and more, which, like I said, which causes harm, because Elvis had the same kind of thing where they kept giving him all these painkillers, and the longer you're on those, and if you have other issues as well, that it just all kind of keeps feeding back into itself, because the drugs they give you, like I said, they cause constipation, they cause all these other health issues, and then you have to take other drugs to alleviate that, and then it's just this big fucking spiral.
Codeine and morphine type drugs, opiates, they put you into a mental bubble too, where you're in your own little world. And it's kind of a world of fantasy and self-delusion, which wouldn't help a dude like Hughes.
Yeah.
He's in the middle of a fucking empire. You know what I mean? Be real easy to convince yourself that reality doesn't apply to you. And I think that's part of
he definitely does seem like somebody that thought that he could transcend
he could do anything.
Reality.
Yeah, this doesn't work.
And it might be because of his upbringing, like I said, because he was raised very rich and he could kind of have whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
So, and then the fact that he inherited the company when he was very young. He was only 19, and he was a millionaire, a billionaire already. And I don't know. I don't think that's very healthy for a person.
When you think about it, it's almost kind of like eternal childhood, isn't it?
A lot of people said that about him. That he was just like a kid. Yeah. Essentially, he had never really grown up. He never really had to.
No real challenges.
He did daring shit. He flew around the world. He could fly planes. He did this, that, and the other thing. But it did really seem like a lot of people that knew him said that he had never really grown up or never really matured. He never had any hardship in his life, really.
Well, he's volunteering himself for hardship, trying to earn scores, points for himself.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the issue.
When he's trying to break those records, which is what I was trying to say in earlier shows. That's what Tom Cruise did when he tried to fucking join Scientology.
Yeah.
He was a man who had it made, pampered kind of guy who came from nothing. He came from nothing. Pretending that he's a hero in these movies and pretending that he's a man of action. But he doesn't have those credentials. He's not ex-military. He's not ex-law enforcement. He never takes real risks. So how does he get these credentials? He can't join the army. He can't become a cop, but he can join Scientology.
Yeah.
And they can make him a fucking wizard. Make a motherfucker a Jedi. And fucking give him training on riding, him and fucking Dave Miscavige riding the fucking Ducatis around and shooting guns into secret fucking Scientology bases out in the middle of fucking the desert with the fucking sacred text of L. Ron Hubbard and shit everywhere, and he can be fucking special. Because only a Scientology course can help a person out of accident and jump out of a car and save a motherfucker from dying.
Because they're the only ones that would do that.
Exactly. They're the only ones that would do that. It's just a Scientology. You know what I mean?
A regular non-Scientologist would never do such a thing.
Fuck no. Public?
We would never stop to help a person that was in pain, that had been in an accident. No.
Only Scientology Special Forces, also known as
the fact that he actually believes that is kind of mind-blowing to me. That's mind-blowing.
Well, like I said on other shows, being an ex-thespian myself and knowing, having friends, ex-girlfriends that are fucking Hollywood stars and shit, they're pampered. They're not real people. They're not real people. They're pretenders. Adult pretenders.
Well, you don't really... I mean, once you have a certain amount of money, and I think Howard Hughes really applies in this case too, it's like once you have a certain amount of money, you're really buffered from the kind of like vestiges of life that a lot of us regular Joes have to put up with.
And then they tell them to get in front of television and give people advice on how to fucking live their lives.
I don't take advice from nobody.
Don't take advice from a fucking Hollywood...
I don't take advice from anybody.
They don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
I'm like, are you me? No. Yeah. Then shut up.
Yeah. It's fucking funny.
I don't like to give advice.
That's why L. Ron Hubbard wanted celebrities in Scientology. Because even back in his day, he knew that celebrities had a lot of pull with the public. You know what I mean? Like, he's a Scientologist.
Well, he's famous, so let's listen to what he has to say, even though he's a total idiot.
And if he's a Scientologist, then Scientology must be good. It would never be something like a UFO cult or anything like that. No.
How could that be?
It could never be a UFO cult.
Anybody that would listen to a fucking celebrity on anything, it's like, I don't fucking know. It's like people listening to Jenny McCarthy about fucking vaccines. Fuck
Alex
off with
is just saying my name laughing. Alex, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, bro. You can't just say my name and laugh. All right.
You're just funny in general. Okay. He's just laughing at your entire persona.
What I'm saying.
But yeah, so, that's what I'm saying. Like, everything that I read about Howard Hughes, I'm not, like, shitting on him or anything like that, but it does seem like dudes like Howard Hughes that are very intelligent, but have grown up in a very privileged, manner, it does seem that they are constantly trying to prove something to the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, just like with all the women, with all the records he was trying to, like, with all the shit that he was trying to do, he was always trying to, like...
I admire it, though. At least he tried to do something. He didn't sit around.
Yeah, you didn't just sit around.
Sit around and get fat, which a lot of them would have.
Yeah.
A lot of them just sit around and get fat and just hired hookers to come over and blow them. That's what they'd have been. It's like, I don't even have to be good looking for you whores. I'll just fucking
I can just lay with my big belly. Saying, can we even find the... Can we move the belly to the side? Right. So
I don't need to be good looking. You're just a whore. Yeah, that's... So at least he fucking... He was a man. He's all right.
And like I said, a lot of the women that dated him, even though he did some shitty, like, and questionable things, particularly concerning some of the young ingenues that came there, like their careers, like the contracts and stalking them and whatnot, a lot of the women that dated him and were friends with him did actually, they recognized that he had some issues, that he was very insecure, that he had like that he was very ruthless in business, but a lot of them did seem to like him as a person.
He was a man of his time.
Yeah.
And he was a good man, but he wasn't in, I think, the best of situations when it came to developing really good character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's difficult to be that wealthy and develop really good character. Because to develop really good character, you have to know both sides of the fence. You have to have some suffering.
Yeah.
And he did run from it. So maybe he suffered a little bit then. But it has to happen in your early childhood development.
Yeah, you know I mean, he's never going to have the same character,
right?
I guess, or the same struggle, I guess, as someone that grew
came
up
from a trailer park and came from nothing and fucking then built themselves up. Because he was not really self-made.
No.
He inherited it.
Yeah,
and then
I mean,
built
his
upon
dad, his family was wealthy. Because his mom's family was wealthy as well. It wasn't just his dad.
It's very rare to have somebody who's 100% self-made and have that amount of wealth.
I don't even know. It's hard to say. It's like it's
the only one maybe be Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg.
Just if you like invented something that like everybody.
Elon Musk, I think, came from nothing, didn't he?
I'm not. Well, I don't want to answer that question because I'm not sure.
I think he just did PayPal, right? Isn't
Yeah.
isn't that where the money first came?
I think so, yeah.
I don't think he really
That
had
he's the
anything.
one. Yeah, and like I kind of admire, like, I'm not saying that like those are all good people, because they're not, but if you just have like a great idea and can know how to implement it, like,
Yeah.
you know, I came up with the idea for Facebook, I came up with the idea for PayPal, whatever. I'm not saying they're great people. I'm just saying I admire that more than some guy that comes out and says, "Oh, I'm a self-made millionaire," even though
Right.
you know you get all this money from your parents and you had
Well,
all these
look,
connections already. It's like,
nobody's
yeah,
perfect.
it's easier for you. It's
Doesn't
easier.
matter. It doesn't matter where you come from. Nobody's perfect. But I think Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, the guy that fucking owns Amazon. What's his fucking name again?
Jeff Bezos.
Bezos. Yeah, all those dudes basically came from nothing. They were just computer nerds that came from nothing, and they all ended up a little bit different. None of them are perfect. But you know, even though those guys are very different, and I think the public has a very different opinion of each one of those, depending on what side of the aisle you fall on, those are all good men. They all have different opinions. I don't agree with all of them. All right, but they're all good men. They're all doing what they think is right. I think they were a cut above of the billionaires of the past, of the 20s and the 30s. I think they're a lot better.
Well, a lot of
than
those came from money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Not always. Like every now and then you'd get a guy that just had like a really good business idea
They were
and like
descendants of the robber barons.
scraped together like enough money
Yeah.
to. But that was rare.
Most of them were descendants of robber barons.
Yeah, because I feel
Yeah.
like the myth of like the self-made man that is largely a myth.
Well, they have them. They
They
have 'em.
do. Like I
Yeah.
said, every now and then you do get a dude. It's like,
Yeah.
I came to the United States, you know, they were an immigrant and I only had $5 in my pocket and like I scraped and I had like a food
Well-
truck and now I own Taco
Well,
Bell or whatever.
but here's
It's
something
like,
else.
but that's very rare. It's
It's-
usually you have to have.
It is very rare, but you know what? Most of the robber barons were like that.
Yeah.
Most of the robber barons. Who was the guy that owned the railroads? Irishman. He came without a pot to piss in. He was a
Yeah.
fucking gangster.
Yeah.
You guys know who I'm talking about. What's his
Yeah.
name?
I can't remember his name right now.
Yeah, he was the he was the guy who owned the railroads.
Yeah. There was a lot of
He was
those.
an old Irishman,
Yeah.
and that dude there, he was a fucking gangster. But he came with nothing. So that's another thing. Just because you were an old school American robber baron, that doesn't mean you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth either. Quite the contrary. Late 1800s, you were a ruthless gangster, most likely, street gangster.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
fucking-
the subsequent generation, I do feel
Right.
like a lot of those people were.
Vanderbilt, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Vanderbilt, yeah.
You know, it's much easier to make
Thanks,
it in
Alex.
business if you already have money and you already have connections. That's all I'm saying. I mean,
Wait.
obviously.
Wait a minute, no. Vanderbilt, Carnegie, Rockefeller. Carnegie was,
Andrew Carnegie was steel, was he
Steel.
not?
yeah.
I can't remember.
Rockefeller was oil.
Hi, Pookie.
Vanderbilt was fucking newspapers. Carnegie, I think, was railroads. Vanderbilt was newspaper.
Was he though?
Yeah. Vanderbilt, I think, was a newspaper. That was the media empire.
I don't think that was Vanderbilt. I think that was what's his fucking face? Christ, I can't remember either. Oh no, Pookie. Please don't.
Don't step on shit, Pookie. Go around. Pookie likes to walk across keyboards.
Yeah, she's like, oh,
They
it's so warm. It has squishy
They're
buttons.
warm and they're squishy. Yeah.
She tried to pull the buttons off my
Come on
Mac
down.
the other
Come
day.
on down. Come on down.
She's
Yeah,
like-
Carnegie was steel,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I think.
That's what I thought.
I have to go on the internet and fuck all these people up and show 'em.
Yeah,
just
William
don't know.
Randolph Hearst was newspapers. Thank you.
That's right.
Deborah.
Hearst
Thank
is
you,
news-
Deborah.
I went to his
I was
house.
like, it was the guy with the fucking rosebud. You know.
Yeah, that's right. I went to Hearst.
That guy.
I went to Hearst Castle in California when I was a little kid. My mom took me.
Yeah, Vanderbilt was shipping and railroad.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Alex says.
I'm trying to sort it all out. I went to Hearst's house. It's called Hearst Castle. You used to be able to fucking buy a tour back in the the 70s when I was a kid. My mom took me there. And it was so fucking big, especially the outside, that it scared me. I was afraid. I was fucking trembling. Because he had like a Parthenon-like Greek temple and all these fucking Greek fountains with fucking gargoyles that spit water and gigantic fucking marble statues of fucking Greek gods. I was fucking terrified. What you doing, Pook?
She's tearing up all the
No.
all the padded envelopes I have stacked over there.
Yeah, but if you guys want to look at Hearst Castle, that shit's fucking a trip. Pook, you settle the fuck down, okay?
She's like, no, I'm not
She's
going to.
ignoring me. Fuck
She's
you.
like, no, I'm
Come
just
here.
gonna do. Pookie's gonna pookie.
Yeah.
That's just what she does.
Don't tear up paper. Don't tear up paper.
But yeah, so I do feel like, you know, as interesting as I find Howard Hughes, it's not like he, you know, came out of nowhere, came out of nothing. He basically inherited his dad's business. And like I said, he wasn't the best businessman. It's just that he had all this money and he could do whatever he wanted with it. And it happened that he, you know, made a lot of like innovations just because that's what he was into. What are you doing? Nope. Oh, you got it. She's like, what? Why did you take me away? She loves tearing
wants
up
attention.
paper. She loves tearing up paper.
She wants attention.
Yeah. So Howard Hughes is in seclusion for a long time. Like, a lot of people don't know where he is. I forgot to even mention, like, earlier on, like, when he was 19 years old, he married a debutante. I think her name was Ella Rice. And basically, he did the same shit to her that he had done, that his dad had done to his mom. It was basically like he married her and then he's just like, bye.
Yeah.
And then he like took off for Hollywood and she's like, are we going to be like married?
He's
or
like, no, I'm married already.
not? And he's just like, yeah, don't come out here. I have like too much shit to do. And it's like, so every time she wanted to come out and visit, every time she wanted to like, hey, let's have Christmas together, every time he would always like think of some excuse.
Yeah.
Like, I'm working on a movie. I'm doing this, that, and the other thing. So it always seemed like he was trying to avoid her. Yeah. She even like came to, like, she left him a bunch of times because she knew about like all the fucking womanizing and stuff. And she kind of put up with it for a while. And then like after she was just like, fuck it, I'm out of here.
She divorced him?
Yeah, she did finally. But she even came to, when they were going through the divorce, I think, she even came to visit him at a hospital, like, after one of his plane crashes. And he was, like, he was a total dick to her. He was just kind of like, what are you doing here? Why did you come here? I don't want you here. Get out. And she was like, just, okie doke. And she just kind of got out of there. Now, he had made, like, a provision for her that he was going to give her, I don't remember how much it was. I think it was $50,000 a year, like, for the rest of her, like, an annuity, like, for the rest of her life. But later on, like, when his company got into trouble, it didn't, like, the payment didn't go through, like, one year, and, like, her lawyer, like, got crawled up his ass and everything. It was, like, this big fucking problem. But, yeah, he was actually married, like I said, 2 times that they have records of. Maybe 3 times, because Terry Moore, who was an actress, she actually said that when she was like a young starlet, that Howard Hughes had like taken her out on his yacht and married her out there, and then there was paperwork just so he could have sex with her. And then afterward, he threw the paperwork overboard, so there was no record of it. So that might have been a 3rd. She said she was married to him for a long time. I don't know if that's the case because there's no record of it.
He must have settled out of court with them
but all. He did actually. Yeah. He did later actually give her a sum of money. But that it sounds crazy, but that sounds like something that he would do, because like pretty much a lot of other women that he dated said that he would say all kind of shit to them, like, "Oh, I'm gonna marry you," or "I married you," like, in God's eyes or whatever, just so he could get him into bed, and then he'd be like, yeah, whatever.
Well, he figured they needed an excuse.
Yeah.
That's probably what he figured.
That's pretty much
they're under all these societal pressures that they have to be married, so I'm going to go ahead and take the pressure off of them. I'm going to tell
That's what he did. That's exactly what he did.
So go ahead and give it up, baby.
That's exactly what he did.
Of course that's what he did.
It worked a few times. Some of the women were just like, yeah, no, they didn't fall for it, but because even back then, people were savvy.
For him, it didn't matter if he married him for real or in God's eyes. It's going to be about the same anyway.
Yeah, it really didn't seem to matter. It's like, I don't even really know why he bothered to, like, marry the 2 women that he did, or 3 women that he did marry. It's like, why bother? Yeah. Because it just seems like...
It's on a whim.
1, he's going to cheat on him anyway. It's like, 2, it's like...
He's going to disappear and you never see it.
He's going to disappear and never, like, be, like, their husband anyway. So it's just like, why...
He was the marriage type.
Why bother with it?
The marriage type.
That's what I mean. It's like, I don't understand why he even bothered. So, yeah. So he was basically in seclusion for pretty much a decade. Now, the last time that he came out into public was because this happened in 1971. There was a huge scandal about there was this book that was supposedly coming out that were supposedly his memoirs. Now, the person that wrote it said that they had been like interviewing him and they'd been in contact and they'd been talking with him and this was all fine with him and he had signed all these papers and shit. And the guy that wrote the book, like, had the manuscript and it was going to be published and everything was all fine. He had all these papers that were supposedly signed by Howard Hughes saying it was all right. And so Howard Hughes had to come out of his reclusive state to say that this was bullshit. Because there was like a whole $1 million like fucking book deal for this shit, which 1971, that was a lot of money. So, you know, so there was like this big controversy about it. And actually it was significant because that was the last time that Howard Hughes was seen in public, was him coming out and saying, hey, this whole book thing that's happening. That,
now let me back
I
up.
didn't talk to that guy.
Let me back up a little bit. During all this time, going all the way back to his fucking chase and tail days with all these young starlets at RKO, he had built the world's largest and greatest intelligence organization, and it was fucking extremely adept at counterintelligence. To get, in other words, how to foil fucking intelligence agents tapping your phones. He could do that. All right.
Yeah.
It was fucking what's his name? What was the name of his security agency? Do you remember?
No. It's all right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm trying to remember. He decided, in his wisdom, and it might have been very wise, that in Hughes, I think it was just called Hughes Security.
Probably.
He
named everything after
Yeah, I'm just going to call it Hughes Security. In Hughes Security, he decided to recruit only from the Mormon population.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons.
Because they didn't drink.
They didn't drink. They didn't smoke. They were clean cut and good looking, kind of mostly blonde kind of guys.
He thought they were trustworthy because they didn't drink.
And he saw them as tolerant of his lifestyle of having lots of women. Okay. Because, you know, the Mormon church had a reputation for bigamy.
Yeah.
Well, then multiple marriage. I'm not going to call it bigamy. Multiple marriage. So he saw them as being friendly to his lifestyle. And he invented a lot of money and a lot of technology to develop the technological tools that these guys would need. Okay? They had two missions. Monitor and protect his harem. That was fucking run one. Okay?
Don't let him do anything.
Don't let them bitches give out that pussy. That's fucking... If they're giving it out, let me know. That
was like priority number one. Seriously. Like all these, he wasn't even banging them usually. Nope. He had so many. He just didn't want him banging anyone else or doing anything else.
You could not give away any pussy if you worked for fucking Howard and you were one of his starlets. You can try to fucking find reason in that all day long, but you just cannot fucking expect to find reason in theology. And pussy was his religion. Okay. Now. It
does seem like that.
Yeah, I think it was.
That was what he spent pretty much all of his time on.
I'm giving you the straight up manformation on this shit. Okay, manformation. All right. Pussy was his religion. Okay, he had not transcended He had not transcended that. That fucking man, I feel so drunk I can't even fucking talk about this shit. He did not transcend the addiction of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? He had to have it. He couldn't take it or leave it. So he was kind of weak to it. Stop it, Pook. Stop it. I'm talking about pussy. Okay.
Don't talk to her like that. She's just a baby.
She doesn't understand. Sis. Anyway.
Talking like that in front of our child.
The second mission. Pookie, I told you, I said, do not. That is already labeled to go to a customer. She tried to hide underneath it.
She's like, what? I didn't. Okay. She can tear up one of the languages if she wants to.
Now, mission 2. By all accounts.
Mission 1, pussy.
Mission 1, pussy protection. Okay, that's the first one. Mission 2, okay. Do not allow the FBI to know anything about Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
And that's what
he was. He was super paranoid about that. He thought they were watching him, which They actually did have him under surveillance for a time, but because of the antitrust stuff, it wasn't like for any other. He was kind of paranoid though.
The FBI thought Howard Hughes was crazy, and they were afraid that he would crash the economy.
Which, like I said, that was a legitimate concern.
Yeah. It was half true. He could have crashed the economy, probably.
He probably could have, sure. And he was crazy, so they were correct.
He said something sideways on television one time, and it caused a fucking stock market fluctuation. That happened. And that's when he kind of came under scrutiny. Yeah. The FBI was like, and what was the guy who ran the FBI? He was a notorious fucking one.
Who, Hoover?
Hoover, yeah. Hoover was fascinated, was fucking absolutely fascinated with him.
Alex says economies are effeminate.
Economies are fucking effeminate. I like how Alex thinks. If anything meddles with your normal man business, it's effeminate.
Your normal man business.
Yeah,
whatever that may be.
It's just whatever you want. If it starts fucking with you,
eating gummy bears.
Yeah, it's just like, shit's effeminate. This shit's effeminate, man. I'm taking it back to the 80s. You know what I mean? I'm on the Randy Macho Man Savage level of it. That's just
Snap
effeminate.
into a Slim Jim.
Stab into a goddamn Slim Jim. Everything else is effeminate. Yeah, I'm just having fun with these. I'm just having fun.
So where were you going?
Oh, it was just rule 1 and rule 2. Rule 1, protect pussy. Rule 2, don't let the FBI know anything. And this fucking created the world's greatest intelligence organization. The FBI, and then later on the CIA, actually learned everything that they eventually knew from the Hughes security organization. They modeled themselves after his security.
Yeah.
They were in a fucking... basically a war with Hughes security for decades.
Yeah.
That's some fucking cool shit. But evidently, this security agency got so big and so sprawling that it kind of ended up doing its own thing. Like, no one really knows what that agency was doing.
Once something gets to a certain size, no one person can be said to be in control of it anymore because there are too many mitigating circumstances.
Now, because this agency was so wealthy and all staffed by Mormons and so powerful, and Hughes didn't monitor it really. It ran as long as it was doing its job.
He was in a fucking room with blackout curtains, naked peeing in bottles, man. He didn't know what was going on.
Hughes gave a shit what these organizations did as long as they fulfilled the criteria he wanted. If there was extra shit happening, he wouldn't even know about it. So it has been theorized that this organization, when Hughes wasn't watching, was absolutely rebuilding fucking Salt Lake City. And the entire modern Mormon church in all of its glory actually was built on Hughes money with the Hughes security agency and with the muscle that security agency had. You could leverage local authorities. You could do all kinds of shit, make certain laws happen in Utah, and you could fucking rule the state of Utah with the power that Hughes actually accidentally gave you.
Yeah.
And
he didn't mean to do that shit.
No. But the Mormon church as you know it is probably a product.
Side effect.
Yeah, the Mormon church as you know it most likely is a product of Howard Hughes. And he didn't even know it.
Well, yeah, like I said, he was just locked in a room, worried about flies and And allegedly employing somebody for 8 hours a day to swat flies away from the door.
Yeah, now that is fucking totally unintended by Hughes, but I don't want to talk bad about the Mormon church. I serve with Mormons and know Mormons are actually good people. And even though those fuckers are kind of prejudiced against non-Mormons, it's a nice town. Some of the cults, like the Warren Jeffs cult, I don't think represents mainstream Mormonism. You know, I think that dude is just a fucking freak. Most Mormonism is about like fucking any other Christian sect, you know, like something you'd find in Southern Baptist, you know, this is just their own style. But now that money that built or helped build Salt Lake City, which that's like fucking Mormon Mecca, you know, that's their capital city.
Well, yeah.
That also ended up in a fucking corporation. There's a fast food chain you would know as Dairy Queen. Yeah. That's Mormon, Dairy Queen, which is good ice cream, man. That fucking hit you with that blizzard.
Or a dilly bar.
And then fucking next thing you know, fucking Joseph Smith coming at you through the fucking ice cream. And then the fucking...
Bet you didn't know that, did you? Every time you got a
with
dilly
the
bar...
Angel Maloney coming out of the...
Maroney.
Maroney. I called him Maloney. Maroney Baloney coming out of the fucking goddamn blizzard. With the little M&Ms and shit. It's beautiful. You didn't know that, did you?
I did,
Angel's making fucking ice cream.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Angel Maroney is making the blizzards and the dilly bars.
Next thing you know, you got Olivia Newton-John fucking singing the Grease fucking...
Wait, is she a Mormon?
She was in Greece. That fucking Sandra D.
she was supposed
to be a Mormon.
They just took that out of the movie.
They took that out of the movie.
It was in the play.
It was in the play. Sandra D. was a
in the
Mormon.
movie. She was just like a square.
Yeah.
Just a general square.
Mormons are squares.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they didn't like explicitly say she was a Mormon.
Yeah, she's a Mormon. In the original, she was a Mormon.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Practicing selective breeding.
I don't know. I still think we should do a whole show on the Mormons because that's a whole.
Oh man, we get the Mormons fucking with us. But yeah, we could do Mormon.
That's a whole fucking
Mormon mythicism.
Man. There's a whole story. There's all kinds.
That's the Islam of America.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways.
He copied Islam. Very definitely.
He did. Well, like I said, a lot of religions kind of it's like fanfic. They borrow shit from each other.
Yeah.
I like this aspect. Let's spin off a whole kind of shit, but it's like a whole other spin off.
You also didn't know that fucking Dairy Queen was Mormon. Of course Dairy Queen is Mormon.
It is, yeah. Just like Chick-fil-A is fundamentalist Christian.
But they got some fucking badass chicken sandwiches,
Although, pro tip, you can make Chick-fil-A sandwiches yourself by soaking the chicken in pickle juice.
Pickle juice, yeah. But you
That's the secret, pickle juice.
And you got to pressure cook it.
Yes.
You batter it and then pressure cook it in oil.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. If you don't want to go to Chick-fil-A, that's how you make the sandwiches
I've made them before. They're beautiful.
Yes, he has made them before. Soak them in pickle juice, pressure cook them. They're beautiful. They taste just like Chick-fil-A sandwiches. Yeah. So, in case you wanted to know. We should put that in the cookbook, actually.
Yeah, we could do that.
We need to finish that before the end of the year. Holy crap.
Actually, all right, look. Chick-fil-A changed the recipe. They're not pressure cooking in oil like they used to. It's slightly different. I do the old school Chick-fil-A like it was.
Yeah.
It's got the batter on it. It kind of tastes like it's fried, but not really. That's because they pressure cooked that bitch in oil.
Yeah.
It gives a special... It's totally different when they have... Yeah, it's just different. It's not crisp.
But like I said, I think it's the pickle juice that really makes it. It's
pickle juice.
It's brining.
You got to soak it. You got to soak the breast overnight in a fucking jar of pickle juice.
Yeah, we put them like in a big Ziploc bag, like a gallon Ziploc bag of pickle juice.
Yeah, you want like 5, 6 of them in there.
Because I love pickles, so we have like those big fucking 5-gallon jars of pickles like from Sam's.
And then you just dip it in just normal fucking egg batter with some, and then roll it in flour and throw it in a fucking pressure cooker that's got a little bit of oil in it. Fucking, and it's only a few minutes.
Yeah.
And it comes out just like Chick-fil-A.
It's exactly the same.
It is that. It's exact same. Soft, and then a steamed bun.
Yeah, you have to steam the buns also.
Yeah.
Now, if we could figure out how to do the waffle fries.
I haven't had a waffle fry.
Waffle fries.
I never have.
They're good.
Yeah.
Although, I have to say, the waffle fries are good, but I don't like them as much as the old KFC used to do this big old wedge french fries. It was just like a wedge of potato with the skin on it. And they don't do those anymore because they're assholes. Why does anybody do fucking wedge fries anymore? Those are fucking delicious. I don't know. I don't get it. But yeah, so... Alright, so we're getting up to the point now where Howard Hughes is going...
talking about here in fucking... they see Mormons walking around in pairs in their mission, but I don't know where he's talking... In New York, yeah. They go to where all the sinful people are. And
I've seen them around here because where I used to work, the print shop I used to work at, there was a Mormon... What do they call their little Mormon... They don't call it a church. They call it something else.
Temple.
Yeah, there's a little Mormon temple, like, maybe 3 buildings away from where I worked.
They're asking me how long... Oh, go ahead. They're asking me how long in the pickle juice. Like 5 people. At least overnight in the pickle juice.
Overnight we did it.
And you got to pressure cook it.
Yeah,
all right,
get a pressure cooker.
There are recipes online, the old school way to make fucking Chick-fil-A. It's any old bun, really. You can microwave it with a little bit of water inside a plastic bag. It'll steam. Or you could put it in a steamer.
You could, like, well, what I used to do with hot dog buns, you just, like, wrap them in, like, a wet paper towel. And they'll, like, steam for, like, 30 seconds. Maybe.
Yeah. And it's just that breast. It comes right out of the fucking pressure cooker. Pickles on it, and I think mayonnaise. That's it.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A, I think
nothing on 'em.
Yeah, they just put pickles and mayonnaise in.
Pickles and mayonnaise, that's it. That's it.
Which, that's all you need, really.
Yeah, and you don't want one of these big-ass Sanderson Farm fucking... You don't want that. You want a small chicken breast. A real chicken breast.
Yeah, don't get, like,
Don't
big,
get the
like,
Sanderson Farm,
Franken-chicken
Mississippi fucking chicken. I know Sanderson Farms. That's all fucking steroid chicken. The texture
we bought
isn't
some
right.
chicken breasts from Sam's before, and they were, like, this big.
Yeah, well, that's a...
Can you even see that? This big.
And that came from a Mississippi farm called Sanderson's Farm.
Those chickens can't even walk, seriously.
They sent those chicken breasts to Russia, and Russia sent them back. They were like...
They're like, yeah, that's upsetting. I don't want to
They're
eat
like,
that.
chickens don't get that big. There's something wrong. And they're absolutely right.
They're correct.
There's so many fucking growth hormones in those chickens. And that chicken is almost the size of a small turkey, and it gets that big in 2 weeks from birth.
Yeah. And like
you
I
know
said,
there's not something...
they
something
can't
wrong.
walk.
They can't even walk. Their legs break.
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah.
Like I said, we bought chicken at Sam's before and then brought it back, and we were taking the breasts out to,
And
like,
just
freeze
like-
them, and
and
they
it's
were
just
like,
like- they're the
and
size
they
of
were
a
like,
fucking turkey
Yeah, it's
breast.
like a turkey breast. I'm like, holy shit, man.
And they don't
Should
taste
we be
good.
eating this?
And they don't taste good. The texture's all wrong. It's like eating a big-ass fucking scallop. Like a real...
Like, not even a good scallop.
Not even a good scallop. Like a tough scallop. The texture's not right. You want a little, normal, natural chicken breast. That's what you want. And that's what they're making... That's what they're making Chick-fil-A with.
Yeah, pickle juice is key.
Pickle juice. At least overnight.
Yeah, just throw it in, like, just get a Ziploc bag, fill it up with pickle juice,
Yep.
throw it in the refrigerator,
Yep.
and just leave it in there overnight, and
Yep.
then the next day
And,
stick it in the
and if it's
pressure
in
cooker.
there for 2 or 3 days, even better.
Yeah, because it'll all, like, soak into the, like, muscle
Yeah,
fibers.
and it won't rot in that chicken in that pickle juice. It'll never
juice.
chickle juice. It'll never go bad.
Chicklet juice.
It'll never go bad. Really.
Whatever. What about turkey necks, says Ilsa?
I don't know how. I don't have the turkey neck recipe. I gotta call
But
my
can
dad.
you put them in your chest?
Yeah. That's a special Mississippi recipe that only my dad's black neighbor. She's this cute black woman married
You
to
should
this.
call her.
Yeah, and she makes them for my dad. It's the wife of a.
He's a cop,
Of a,
right?
No, Mississippi National Guard. He's
Oh,
ex.
okay,
he's
so-
ex-active military army in the National Guard. He's a fucking E7. So he takes care of my dad. All this bullshit about fucking race problems in the United States. That's not the general. Most people get along. They get along very well. America watches out for, especially in the country areas. Your neighbor, you always watch out for your
Well,
neighbor.
like I said, most people are
Most people are cool.
okay.
Most people
it's
are very
just
cool.
that
Yeah.
people that get on the news are,
They're the
exceptions.
assholes.
That's
Right.
why they're on the news, is because
Yeah.
they're an exception. Most
Right.
people are all right.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
Yeah, when visiting my dad, I grew up in Heidelberg, Mississippi, and Laurel, Mississippi. And Heidelberg now, all the white people died. My dad is the last of the white man. The last white man. He's the last white man.
That's the title of his
It's all
upcoming
black now.
autobiography.
Yep, it's all
The
black.
last white man in Mississippi.
Yeah, it's it's a little bitty village. It's a little bitty village built in the 60s.
The Man Made of Turkey Necks. That's going to
Yeah.
be the subtitle.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that shit.
It's a little bitty village in the 60s, made in the 60s. It looks like 60s and 70s houses, 80s houses. And all the people that built that shit were all white Mississippi people, and they were all old when they built that shit. It was like a retirement village almost, and they're all dead now. And it's all black middle class now. And they are experiencing the 1950s. They have parades, and they go fucking see movies, and they got a nice high school there, and it's like Greece. They're living the American dream. It's a lot of this shit you're seeing on the fucking news is exceptions to the rules. Most of America is totally fucking normal.
Well,
Totally
like
normal.
I said, the reason why you see things on the news
Yeah.
is because they are exceptions.
Yeah.
Because they are quote unquote newsworthy.
Yeah.
If it was what everyone was doing, it wouldn't be
Yeah.
newsworthy with it. Would it?
All the trouble's coming from warring factions. They don't have anything to do with the average person.
Well, like I said, that's why I'm not worried
Yeah.
about it. But like I said, So turkey necks. You don't have you don't have a recipe.
I don't know the
turkey necks.
recipe. My dad said they were fucking fantastic. He kept talking about how good they were.
I've never had turkey necks.
Yeah.
I'm super into turkey though, and Thanksgiving is probably my favorite meal of the year.
Yeah.
We always go all out for Thanksgiving, man. We usually get 2 big fucking turkeys because they're cheap.
Turkey necks is a Southern concept. You know what I mean? Fucking, and it goes way back. There's a lot of meat on a turkey neck. Turkey necks aren't worth anything. You could probably get fucking 20 of them damn turkey necks for $1.50.
I wouldn't mind like grinding it up and making like a soup out of it.
They got bones.
Yeah.
So you got to slow cook that shit. You got to pull all the bones out of them, or you eat it off the bone, like a chicken wing.
Yeah.
But I don't know what she did. She did something to him that it really impressed my dad. My dad
Probably
"You put
deep
that
fried
damn
it.
turkey
Probably deep
turkey
fried
necks. I didn't know a turkey neck was that good. Yeah, you know.
Like I said, she probably deep fried it. I mean, deep
I don't
frying stuff makes everything taste good.
I don't know what it was.
Makes everything taste like a donut except with meat inside.
Yeah.
Do you want to get back to talking about Howard Hughes?
You got to go back because we got to finish this show.
Even though, like, we're almost like to the end. Anyway.
Okay.
Because we're at the point now where he's like gone to crazy town. And like I said, he's got like he looks like a bomb. He's got like the long fucking fingernails and toenails. He's never cuts his hair. He's like fucking peeing in bottles and whatnot. So, yeah. So,
Xanada checked fucking population of fucking Heidelberg.
669.
669. That's it, right.
Yeah,
it's a tiny little fucking town.
Tiny town.
And 668 of them are black. That one is my dad. Yeah. And fucking it's absolutely unchanged. It's American as apple pie. It's like the 1950s.
Yeah, it's like,
It's
those
like-
Twilight Zone episodes
Twilight Zone-
where somebody went back in time
Yeah,
to like the 50s
exactly.
town
That's
that
what
was
it's like.
idyllic and
It's
stuff.
black.
It's like that.
It's Black Mayberry.
Okay.
That's Black Mayberry.
Yeah.
And Sergeant, who lives across the street from my dad, is the Black Andy Taylor. Okay, that's like Sheriff Taylor. Exactly.
That's
But no, I thank them. They saved my dad's life.
Yeah.
Did you remember? He
I remember.
had that heart attack on the fucking stoop of the fucking his house, and they fucking called the ambulance and fucking got him into the ambulance. And my dad kind of like helps raise their son, little kid.
Yeah.
Takes him hunting and shit all the time, So
Yeah,
fucking-
it's very very small town, so it's very
small town-
community based. Everybody knows.
exactly.
each other.
It's Black Mayberry. It used to be White Mayberry. Now it's Black Mayberry.
Yeah. So, all right. So the final years of Howard Hughes's life, like I said, when his health was deteriorating, he was suffering from OCD. He was suffering from all the head injuries. He had multiple drug addictions because of all of his pain meds. So, and he was also super paranoid about the FBI, about the CIA watching him, all this other kind of stuff. So he kept like moving around. Like he would have his crew like move him to hotels. Like he went to the Bahamas, he went to Nicaragua, he went to England, he went to Canada, he went to Vegas, he went to Mexico. He was just like going all over the place. He wouldn't stay in one place for a very long time. Now, he would, like I said, he would stay at a hotel and then he would have like his security detail. Like no one could come in to see him. He wouldn't talk to anybody on the phone. I don't know if I mentioned this, but he also had like really bad hearing problems. Actually, that was from when he was a kid. Like he was partially deaf. So he would kind of like preferred to interact with people over the phone than face to face. But even like, at this point, he wouldn't even like talk to people on the phone because he had gotten that paranoid about shit. So so basically hardly anyone saw him at this stage. And he wasn't sleeping very much. He wasn't eating very much. Like I said, he had withered to about 94 pounds, thereabouts. So at this stage, 1976, finally his aides decide, it's like, look, we have to take him. He was in Acapulco at the time. And he said, we have to take him back to this hospital in Houston, like to get him some medical treatment. So they put him on a plane. They're flying him back to Houston and he dies on the plane.
Yeah.
Now, after his death, there was, probably not surprisingly, there was a bunch of shit about his wills. There was a whole thing about the Mormon will. Because there was this guy that was like in the Mormon church. It was one of his things. He's like, hey, I found this will of his that was that was in this drawer, like at the Mormon church, that coincidentally, 1/16 of his whole estate, which I don't even know how much that would have been, but it was
no.
probably a lot,
Billions.
goes to me.
Yeah.
But, and then it was like all these various other charities and stuff. So there was like a huge, like, extended legal battle about that kind of shit, like about this fucking will, until finally they determined that it was fake.
Yeah.
So I don't even know, like, I think most of his money went to his medical institute. I don't even, I didn't even get into, like, all the bribery payments he made to the Nixon, fucking presidential election shit.
Yeah.
I didn't get into his whole thing where he was, like, so paranoid about communists that, like, he wouldn't let people, like, work. If his movies weren't sufficiently anti-communist, he would, like, start over. And he would, like, fire people from being, like, he was, like, so paranoid about that kind of shit. I didn't get into that. There's so many, like, avenues that you could explore about this.
He was OCD.
Yeah.
He was very rich.
Obviously.
And that shit doesn't fucking mix too well because it's hard. You can do whatever you want. People can't say no to you. And when you're OCD, you're going to come up with some weird ass shit and it's going to cause a lot of trouble. That's really the story of
and
Howard
the
Hughes.
sad thing about it was that, like, a lot of people, it doesn't seem, a lot of people that worked for him didn't really seem to take advantage of him, because a lot of people did work for him for a very long time, but when he kind of went into his final, like, downward spiral, he got so paranoid that he fired a bunch of people that had been with him for, like, 20, 30 years because he was, like, paranoid, and he thought that maybe they would, betray him or whatever, even though they probably wouldn't have. So it really does seem like he had people that worked for him for a very long time, but he kind of fucked them over in the end. But considering, it really doesn't seem like a lot of people tried to get too much out of him, like, after he died. Like, the Mormons did, like, that one guy particularly. Some people came forward later and said that they were, married to him, or that, there was a book, like I said, that's on Kindle Unlimited that said he faked his own death and blah, blah, blah. There was all this other kind of stuff. I don't think that's true. I didn't even read that shit. I read, like, the first 2 or 3 pages, and I was like, okay, I don't think so. But,
Well, his Mormon security outfit, though, undoubtedly, in that one book I read, said that it was pretty much supported by a lot of the books, that they pretty much fucking filtered fucking tens of millions of dollars off of his fucking empire in his final years.
that does not shock me.
Because they knew he was dying, and they also knew he was a fucking lunatic.
Yeah.
And that money was all going to go to waste. So they were going to use that to help their church, which they saw as a good thing, which if you're in a church and you believe you're right, then you're going to think that's a good thing. And you're also going to see it as a gift from God.
Because of course you are.
Because it's a gift from God. Right. Of course you are. So...
I mean, he did have his medical institute, which he probably would have. And I feel like that got a lot of his money after he died. Because that's still going.
Yeah,
That's
I
still
remember
around.
there was something about that. It was kind of funny, though. It was kind of a circular fucking thing, and it was kind of set up as a tax shelter for other operations that were running along. None of those foundations are actually on the up and up. They're all of a certain kind of a scam. But it does still exist because he had really good lawyers. And his main right-hand man, the Darth Vader that I was telling you about, he was with him towards the very end. I think he was one of the ones that got fired. You were talking about in that final purge.
There was one guy, Noah Dietrich.
I think his name was Noah.
That was with him
Dietrich.
for a really long time.
Yes, Dietrich. That's who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Dietrich was fucking hired off a street. Hughes, this is way back. Hughes was famous, but this is during the early part of his empire. Hughes believed he was being fucked over by people who were lawyers who were better educated in the law than he was. He was probably right. He did not like lawyers, didn't trust them. So he bought a fucking office building and had that whole goddamn thing furnished, and then just ran all these personal ads in newspapers all throughout LA, running blind ads about looking for some, want to make a lot of money, are you loyal? You know what I mean? And then fucking, that kind of, those kind of blind ads. And had him directed to that fucking office. And he would sit in there with a secretary up front and just all day was fucking talking to people that would come in and answer that ad. And that's when he met Dietrich. And Dietrich was a boxer. All right. A fucking dude with no higher education. He was just a high school graduate. And he was a boxer. And he walks in fucking... Hughes was impressed with his physique. He's like, boy, you're big, you know, you're in good shape. And started talking to him and asked him what he thought about lawyers and just asked him what he thought about things. And I probably asked him what he thought about communists and, you know, just talked to him like that. And he ended up saying, he's saying, do you know who I am? And he's like, no, I don't know who you are. And he was like, well, I'm Howard Hughes. And fucking Dietrich was like, no, you're not. He goes, no.
Fuck off out of here.
He's like, no, I'm Howard Hughes. And then he pulled out a newspaper that had him on it.
He's like, see,
I'm Howard Hughes. And he's like, you are Howard Hughes. And he goes, yeah. And he goes,
I just told you that.
Yeah. And he says, I don't trust lawyers. And I think you're an honest guy. And because you don't know anything about any of this stuff, I think I can trust you. And he's, are you with me? Are you down? You know? And he's like, yeah.
Will you do anything I say?
Basically, that's what he said.
Without questioning it.
Basically, that's the deal. And he goes, okay. And he goes, you know what I'm going to do for you? And he's like, I'm going to make you one of the richest, most powerful men in the world. And he was like, oh,
I can write him down.
Thank you. You know what I mean? And it was absolutely true. Because Dietrich ended up being one of the most powerful, richest men in the world. Will you stop it, Pookie?
Oh, my goodness.
Because Dietrich himself ended up fucking being a multi-millionaire.
Well, he was with him for a long time. At least 30 years.
Pookie, you are making me mad. And she knows it. She loves it.
That's why she does it.
She wants to go outside.
Because she's like, Daddy's going to come and, like, punish me.
She's asking to go out front.
Oh, she wants to go out front?
She wants to go out front.
Okay. Zach just got here. He just got off work.
What the fuck, Zach? God damn.
Well, he had to work, you know.
Let me put the cat outside.
We all got to work.
We're going to go outside.
You can make me another drink while you're out there.
Okay.
Since we're already here. Yeah, so, the Aviator. I haven't seen it in many years. I think I saw it in the theater when it came out. It came out in 2004, right? If I'm not, like, remembering that wrong. But, I'm pretty sure I saw it in the theater. I remember really liking that very much. I mean, it's, like, kind of, you know, it's, fantasized, mythologized, whitewashed a little bit. But it's still, like, a pretty good... I remember that, like, I haven't seen it in a long time, like I said. But I feel like it went a lot into his relationship with Katharine Hepburn, which actually they talked about a lot in the book that I read, because she was apparently like a really good friend of his, even after their like romantic relationship ended. Like she hung out with him like all the time. And some people have said that she might have been like the only woman that he actually loved. Because like I said, I don't know. He didn't really seem capable of that kind of thing. Like he couldn't really like stick with one woman. And even when he was with her, he was still fucking around with multiple other women, which pissed her off, as it would piss off pretty much any woman. But he liked her because she was unconventional. He liked her because she was independent. She didn't need him. She was also from a wealthy family. She was a very successful actress. She had her own shit. She knew what she wanted to do. She didn't need him. And she was not shy about telling him to fuck off if he did something that she didn't like. So I think that he like found that very compelling. It seems like. And like I said earlier, it does really seem like even though for a while he did seem to be into like really young starlets who were just coming to Hollywood and they were like 17, 18 years old, because they would fall for his bullshit, because they didn't know any better. He did really seem to have like a real affinity for women that would not put up with his crap and would just like tell him to go fuck himself. And then like the more they told him to go fuck himself and he would be like, marry me, and they'd be like, yeah, no, I don't really want to. And then that would make like him want them more, just because they told him no. You know what I mean?
Somebody's asking about Hughes faking his death. Hughes would disappear. All right. Like I said, the book that I read, and this was a long time ago, so you know this is back in the late '90s that I read this one. This is called the Untold Story of Howard Hughes. The main source of information in that book was Dietrich. He was the one that fucking contributed.
Noah Dietrich was his name.
Noah Dietrich.
Yep.
Dietrich knew a lot about Hughes. All right. He knew a lot of private stuff that was kind of kept from the public. After he left Hughes and Hughes died, Dietrich went, he told the story. He was loyal to Hughes.
He was, yeah.
When Hughes was alive, he didn't fucking spill any beans. But after he died, he told people what Hughes was about, because he didn't want to embarrass Howard. He liked Howard, but he also wanted Howard's character to be kind of edified in history. He wanted people to know who he was, what he was like.
Yeah.
So, what was I getting at? Talking about his disappearance. Yeah. What Hughes would do, and this was like when he was in his 40s and his 50s, he would get stressed out. He would sit around and think about how big his empire had gotten and how little control he had over it, and it would drive him fucking crazy. So he'd start repeating himself and doing these things that would embarrass him because he had all these fucking head injuries. He'd start glitching out. So he'd fucking jump in a random car and just leave, and would be gone sometimes for a couple years.
Yeah.
Wouldn't tell anybody where he was. During that time, Dietrich's running the empire.
Well, yeah, you had to. It's like they just...
Yeah.
They were kind of used to it at that stage because
Right.
he did that kind of shit all the time. So they were just like running shit.
Right. So
The
I'm
way
gonna tell you.
he would have wanted.
So
I
I'm gonna tell you a Dietrich story. I'm glad you remembered his name. She's so much better with names than me, and it was a long time that I read this book.
And I'm like 3 drinks in, so that's good.
I told a Dietrich story last time I talked about him. I'm telling him again for the main show. Dietrich hadn't seen Hughes in at least a year. He just vanished. He never got word from... He called him Boss. He said Boss didn't call him, and he knew that if Boss didn't say anything, then Boss knew what he was doing and not to fuck around. Just run the empire.
Yeah, just do the shit.
Just do it.
I'm out.
So he wasn't sure what happened to Boss.
Sorry, Lynette says, I showed up 3 hours late and y'all are still going strong. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're drunk as shit,
Drunk,
but you know, we're still going.
So he didn't know what happened to Boss. Out of the fucking blue, Boss shows up right where Dietrich's working. And walks in and starts fucking giving out orders like he hadn't been anywhere. And I think he was gone for 1.5 years. Maybe 2 years.
Yeah, it's almost like he went into these like weird fugues.
Yeah.
Where he would like no time passed for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though like the world went on without him,
Right.
It seemed like he was like that much out of it.
Out in the parking lot was an old fucking jalopy. All right, that he pulled up in. And he goes, Dietrich, 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 Dietrich. And everything he said 4 times, 3 to 4 times. Dietrich, 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 Dietrich. In the car, in the car, in the car, in the car, in the trunk, in the trunk, in the trunk. There's, there's a trunk, there's a box, there's a box, there's a box. I want you to wrap it. I want you to wrap it. I want you to wrap it. I want you to wrap it in number 4 butcher paper. I want you to wrap it in number 4 butcher paper. So it took forever to get anything out of Hughes. Hughes gives this law, and he says, I want you to write this down. Write this down, write this down, write this down.
I can
write
see
this
how
down,
that would
write
be
this round, write this
really
down. And
infuriating.
it would fucking drive you up the fucking wall, and
I can
fucking
see that.
Dietrich would have to fucking chase everybody out because Boss would be fucking embarrassed to be repeating himself so many times.
Because he seemed to know.
Yeah, he
that-
knew.
Yeah.
But it was like OCD. He had to say it 3 or 4 times to make it official. Okay?
Yeah, well, that's what OCD is.
Right.
You have these repeating.
So he comes over and basically I'm going to make it shorter because I don't want to say it 4 times. It says, in the
Just
car...
picture a little 4 like up in the fucking...
In the car, there's a box. I want you to wrap it in number 4 butcher paper. I want you to use twine. I want you to fucking... And he draws a diagram how he wants it wrapped. He says, I want this taken. I want this taken to a building off this road. He starts drawing a road out there. And I want you to build a fucking guardhouse. And there has to be a guard in there 24/7. I want fucking power. And I want a landline for a telephone to go out to the guard shack. I want the power to go out to another area where there's going to be an airfield. On the airfield, there'll be so many lights. On the airfield, the hangar will be this big. It'll be this big and this. It'll be for a plane this size. Blah, blah, blah. This goes on and on and on and on. I want you to have a fucking air conditioning in the guard shack. I want you to take the box and put it in the guard shack behind the guard outside the airfield. And that's where I want the box stored. So after they finally get this
very
shit,
specific.
very
is what we're
specific.
saying. Yes.
So they take the box and they have all this shit built, and it was built off an area in a land where he owned it. They made a fucking like a 10-mile road out to a guard shack, and behind the guard shack a hangar, and then a fucking airfield. They fucking put a landline for the telephone and power to power all the fucking lights. They put the box inside the air-conditioned room, and it stays there for about a decade. Forgotten. One day, Dietrich gets a fucking call from a guy, and it turns out he's the guard in that guard shack. They had a whole security company running security to the fucking airfield.
For this one box.
For this one box, they had an airfield, and no plane ever landed on the airfield.
And like I said earlier, there might be some like Pulp Fiction, like glowing gold shit in there.
Yeah.
Or Repo Man if you want to go older.
Dietrich had fucking like henchmen that worked for him too. He's Darth Vader, and these are all the Boba Fetts. Okay.
All the Boba Fett.
All these Boba Fetts, yeah, right. So.
Sorry, I just had a very funny mental picture. My mind went to like a whole party of Boba Fett.
I fucking see everything in Star Wars terms. Okay.
I get that. I feel you.
Stormtrooper calls him and says, I'm over here I'm the guy guarding the box. Remember me? I've been out here for 12 years. And like, oh shit, we forgot all about that. So fucking Dietrich, fucking Darth Vader's telling all the fucking Boba Fetts, remember that box?
Yeah.
They're calling, what's up with the box? And he says, the air conditioning got fucking plugged up and the humidity's dripping out of the front of the air conditioner and it's landing on that damn box. It's soaked all the way through the paper. And they're like, oh shit. If the boss finds out that water's on that fucking box, he's going to flip the fuck out. We better run down there. So Darth Vader and all the Boba Fetts run down to the fucking airfield. You know, it's fucking... Yeah, they're fucking all the way on the other side of California and shit. And there they see the box and they're like, dude, do they even still make this kind of butcher paper? How are we going to wrap this where he won't know that something bad happened to this?
Because he's going to know.
Turns out they found a butcher paper that was similar to it, though. And they says, he probably won't know.
Yeah,
so they unwrap it and they're going like, should we look in this thing?
What's in the box?
Yeah, and they were like thinking the worst. They were wondering,
what's in the box?
Like, what's in this box? So it was in a fucking very simple fucking trunk. They were able to pick the lock or cut the lock or something. I don't remember what it was. They were able to get through the lock and opened it up. And they were like bracing themselves to see a dead body. But all they saw was fucking Red Rider comic books.
Yeah, I would have thought there's a head in there. That's the first thing I would have
Big stacks of Red Rider comic books and a bunch of douches all wrapped up with dates fucking written on them with little tags. Douches with tags with dates on them and Red Rider comic books. And fucking Dietrich looks at all this shit and says to the Boba Fett's, boss has been up to some shit. What's boss been up to?
That's the understatement of the century.
What's boss been up to?
This is intriguing to me because if this story is true, like the comic books, okay. But the used douches, who did those belong to? And why did he feel the need to save them?
All right. Well, in that book, it kind of plants the seeds of what he's talking about.
Oh, does it? Oh,
it does.
I'm all ears.
According to Dietrich, back in the 20s and the 30s, all right, when he was dating all these young starlets, Howard Hughes considered himself to be a very cutting-edge Oriental lickmaster from the Far East. Okay, that he was engaging, okay, in some sexual activities that was not normal for the time, which is going down on girls.
Oral pleasure.
Yeah,
engaging in giving.
Oral. But according to Dietrich's, the woman had to douche before he'd do it.
Well, yeah, she got to be clean.
She got to be clean.
You know what's
he
funny?
had all these fucking...
Zach says, what exactly is a real douchebag? I'm a gay guy. Back in the old days, before they realized that this was actually very, very bad for you because vaginas are self-cleaning, like an oven, they used to tell you that you had to douche with this stuff. You'd like shoot like this, solution up your vag, like to clean it because it was supposedly dirty and smelled yucky or whatever. So you were supposed to do that. Now, like I said, I feel like that was a thing until what, the 80s? Because I remember still seeing commercials for it in the 80s. But after that, they were just like, please stop doing that because it will give you infections, which it absolutely will.
Yeah.
Your vagina cleans itself. Evolution is taking care of the problem. Please knock it off. If your vagina smells bad, that means you have an infection and you should go to a doctor and get antibiotics. Yeah. Other than that, everything should be kosher. Please don't shoot anything up there. But yeah, before that, there was a big... Massengill was the big brand in the 80s. The 70s and 80s. I remember seeing commercials for that.
So what Lord Dietrich tells us is that there was evidence of Howard Hughes licking pussy. And for some reason,
Well, hey, I mean,
he's
good for him.
For some
Good for
reason,
him.
he has dated it and edified it into these fucking nicely portable packages that he can put
So
in
before-
storage right along with his Red Ryder comic books. And you have to put that shit outside the airfield in air conditioning with guards guarding it. Okay.
Because he's got to, who knows, like, who might need to see that at some point.
Yeah.
He's keeping that shit for
And
posterity.
if I remember, all that shit that he had built out there was all just eventually forgotten and abandoned anyway. You know what I mean? As the fucking 70s and 80s, as the 70s rolled around and Howard died, all that shit, he never went back to that shit.
Zach
The
said,
airfield.
okay, but what's the bag part for? I think
Put
that
water
was,
to catch the
yeah,
water.
it's just kind of, yeah.
To catch the water coming out of the faucet. You hang it out of the
I
faucet, it
never
goes,
used one. Oh.
and then yeah. You put it underneath the fucking faucet of a fucking shower head and turn the shower head on and it fills
Yeah.
inside the bag and then it goes down the thing and it's just so you can spray in there. That's all
It was like an enema, but for your veg.
Yeah, that's all it was.
Essentially. But like I said, that was a big thing. And like I said, I still remember seeing commercials for like Massengill douches, like up until the 80s. But after that, they were just like, hey, please don't do that because...
Yeah, you said that already.
Yeah.
said
That's
that
it's not good for you.
Yeah.
You're not really supposed to
you
do
said
that.
that already.
But I one thing, this is really funny, but I remember seeing shit in like Cosmo from like the 60s and 70s
Yeah.
where they were telling you to douche with Coca-Cola.
Yeah, they probably would do
That was supposed to be like a birth control kind of like it's supposed to like kill sperm or some shit.
Yeah, they would say some shit like that. in
I'm
the
just
60s.
like I don't
Yeah.
think that would work. Just okay. Coca-Cola will do a lot
might.
of things, but
It might work. The thing is, though, is it'd probably give you a bad infection.
that's what I'm saying.
With all that sugar
You
in there.
can't. That's what I mean. You
You
can't.
can't add yeast and sugar.
You can't. Look, you can't even use Mr. Bubble. Mr. Bubble got in trouble in the 70s. That rhymed. I didn't mean for it to. But in the 70s and 80s, because that's shit you pour in your bathtub and it's supposed to like make big bubbles and it's like making a bubble bath.
Bubble bath, yeah.
But it gives you infections, yeast infection, urinary tract infection. You can't put like all this shit up in your vag and like it gets infected and it's not fun.
There's all kinds of fucking shit in there to
It's
kill normal
not
stuff.
fun.
Okay, we gotta change subject. All right.
Tom's getting uncomfortable
yeah,
with the
yeah.
talk of female anatomy. I don't
Yeah.
care. I'm a girl. I've had to
Okay.
put up with this shit my entire life, so I'm not bothered at all. But I guess boys,
Okay, so,
boys don't like it.
No, I'm just saying. What you talking about? All right, so what else is left?
Ken
Anything?
says in the Dillinger movie with Pamela Sue Martin, she douched with pop and soda. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was a thing.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be like a birth control, I thought. Or it was supposed to like clean out your shit.
They didn't. That would have been sugar cane
Yeah.
sugar. All right.
Still
And-
not good though.
No,
No.
I don't think so. It would have given you a bad yeast infection
Oh.
because that's just giving yeast food.
Yeah,
to-
no.
to-
Ooh, nobody wants that.
Sugar and yeast to just make bread. You'll fuck yourself up. I imagine they probably got away with it on a limited basis, but that's not something you could regularly get away
Well,
with.
like I said, just like everything else,
You
some
can get
things
away with
you
it.
you can do it every now and then,
Yeah, but
and
you
it won't
couldn't-
do anything. But if you do it shit
if
regularly,
you're rolling the dice each time.
yeah. I mean,
So-
like I was telling him the other day, like I'm not gonna say who this was, but somebody of my acquaintance, of my personal acquaintance, was really worried about germs like in their mouth, and so they would constantly use mouthwash.
Yeah.
And they used so much mouthwash that they killed all the good bacteria in their mouth and they got thrush.
Yeah.
Because you need some bacteria in your body to combat
Well, there's good bacteria.
there's
Right.
good ones. And I feel like people are like, we have to kill all the bacteria always.
Nah.
No.
We evolved with certain
That's really, really bad if you do that. Please do not do that.
you evolved with certain bacteria that kind of are symbiotes with you to
Yeah.
fucking help protect.
Millions of years
Yeah.
of evolution. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Lucky you didn't lose your teeth doing that, because
Yeah, that's
fucking there's a
very
lot of bacteria that protect your teeth too.
It's kind of like why it's good to use, like antibacterial soap, like sometimes. But if you use it too much,
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of working against yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
to an extent, that's good, but you can't do too much of it, or you're killing like the good bacteria that like is, like you said, like a symbiont with you.
Yeah.
So
All right, so I think we're probably pretty much done with the show, huh?
We probably are.
All right,
oh
we
my
go ahead and
god,
shut
it's
it down.
almost 4 hours long. How did we do that?
I know that. I know. Fucking ridiculous. Let me see.
You're drunker than I am. Yay.
Yeah, if anybody wants to contribute to the show, you can send us a fucking super chat. If you want a shirt, if you send me a $20 super chat, I can send you a shirt.
Yeah, we
Out
got
in a couple days.
We got two to.
Got a bunch of different kind of shirts.
We got two
for
to
sale.
print tomorrow and mail on Monday.
Yeah, got fucking Snake Plissken. I got fucking 13 o'clock shirts. Got Wayland Industry. Got Wayland Utani. I don't know what else I have right now. We're gonna come up with some new stuff too here soon. So if you guys want to send a super chat, now's the time. If not, you can like, share, and subscribe. We got 55 on there right now.
Michael says, and Jenny is still sober. I'm not, but at least I'm
No.
appearing sober.
Yeah. We're just appearing sober.
Yay, good for me. You're not.
Yeah.
Many people have requested a Pookie shirt.
Yeah, we can come up with something like that.
I feel like the Pookie shirt has to be like really something.
That's on you. You got to come up with something.
I know. I got to come up with something. It's really hard for me to like. It's not that hard for me to like design stuff for other people, but when I'm designing stuff for
We can do it
me or for our show, it like takes me forever.
We can take a picture of her. We can somehow translate that. Maybe in dot matrix.
Yeah, I feel
In
like
the dot
because I
matrix.
feel like it has to be a photograph of her because
Yeah.
I don't want to just like use clip art of a cat
No.
that kind of looks like her because it's not her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the issue that I'm having.
Okay.
But we need to get a good enough photo of her that it's because it has to have her little stumpy tail in it because that's one of her, identifying features.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
If I do a Cobra Kai shirt, it's going to be just Cobra Kai. I'm not going to mix it with Pliskin.
When is the new season of Cobra Kai? Because I noticed
Yeah.
that Netflix added the first 2 seasons, which we've already seen because we had like YouTube Premium.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're doing the 3rd season of Cobra Kai,
Yeah.
but I don't know when it's coming out.
Soon.
However, I did notice, you guys, if you guys like The Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, which is directed by Mike Flanagan and based on The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, October 9th. I just saw the trailer for that shit yesterday. I'm so excited. It looks really good.
Okay, let's go ahead and shut it down. It's time for us to go.
All right. Remember, if you like the show, like, share, subscribe on all your social media. It really does help us a lot in the algorithms. If you like, if you comment, if you do all that kind of stuff. And remember, if you'd like to financially support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/13 o'clock podcast, or you can go to our blog, 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, and there is a button in the sidebar to a PayPal account, which goes right to me. So, helps out with all the expenses of the show, various bills, other things.
If I do a Pookie shirt, it's going to be Pookie with Pookie's head on the body of the child from Mandalorian. That's probably what I do.
Or it could be Pookie with her stumpy tail, but with Baby Yoda ears.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think of, like, because I feel like I don't really want to do... Pookie is her own person. So I don't know if I want to, like, mash her up with another character. Because she's kind of her own character.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So we said if Tom made a drink and called it the Hughes, what would it be?
Thank you, Ilsa.
Thank you very much, Elsa.
What are you guys doing for the long weekend? Probably the same shit we always do. Drink and, like, watch old Star Trek episodes.
Yeah. On the 18th, Sophie's going to be here, and she's going to do a couple shows with us, so you guys have fun with that.
Also, this Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to be on Conspiranormal. Mm-hmm. We're doing a whole, like, mega show. Like, all the people that are going to be on the Strange Realities Con are going to be on the show. So I don't know how much time I'm going to have to talk, but, So we're doing a show Tuesday at 8 p.m., so check that out.
So what would a Hughes be? I'm thinking a Hughes would be some kind of a fucking...
It's got to be like some kind of 20s drink, like a gin Ricky or something.
I'm thinking it has to have kind of like a butterscotch flavor to it.
Oh, I like that.
Some kind of fucking a whiskey type. I don't know. I was thinking it would taste like butterscotch or something. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'd have to think about it.
I like butterscotch.
Yeah.
For some reason, every time, maybe because I'm thinking of fucking just 20, like the Great Gatsby type of shit. For some reason, I always associate gin with the 1920s. I guess because of bathtub gin, because of like Prohibition.
I think it would be butterscotch liqueur vodka, and a shot of half and half in it on the rocks.
Ilsa says the Hughes is whiskey with urine in a jar.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Now you've fucking done it. You've done it. Because you have to understand, you called it a jar, and that's not what it was.
It was a
milk
bottle.
bottles. He was pissing in milk bottles. Okay.
Well,
so
do we really need to be that pedantic?
Yes,
about,
because
yes, we do.
The Hughes drink, okay, would be butterscotch liqueur, vodka, on the rocks with a shot of fucking half and half in it, inside one of those little fucking glass milk bottles
a little milk bottle.
that comes from fucking
with a little bit of pee in it.
Yeah, a little bitty glass milk bottle like from fucking Starbucks. You know, little Starbucks fucking coffees, iced coffees, like that. That's
what I was picturing.
Yeah,
that's kind of like the milk bottles that when I lived in the UK, that was like when the milkman would come. That was kind of like, they were a little bit bigger than that, but that was like the milk bottle that they would leave on the doorstep, like with the foil top.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what they were. Michael says I've pissed in beer bottles before. I think most dudes have.
Somebody said a slippery nipple. Is a slippery nipple what I just described?
It's butterscotch.
It's butterscotch?
I can't remember what else is in it, but it might be a rum drink.
Okay.
But it's like a butterscotch kind of flavor. It's like
a
butter rum lifesaver, but
I'm thinking that's probably something Hughes would have liked.
That sounds like his jam, doesn't it?
Yeah. Or if not, something kind of orange and cream. So that might be like Drambuie, vodka, and half on the rocks.
Or some kind of banana nut
cocktail,
like which sounds totally gross.
Yeah.
I'm not super into bananas, you guys.
Yeah.
I don't like a real banana. I can take it or leave it, but the artificial banana flavor, no, thank you. I really do not like artificial banana flavor of any type.
All right, this is the end. We can shut this shit down. I'm gonna go.
He's getting getting impatient.
I'm getting impatient.
All right, we're leaving. He left. All right, we're leaving.
Just sit there and talk all night.
We'll see you guys. We're gonna live stream again tomorrow. It'll either be like a new movie or probably be a sidetrack show. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks everybody for stopping by. Bye.